Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We hope that the technical difficulties have been resolved, but we trust that people will notify us. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We hope that we're actually having some feedback. Resolved. So we apologize for the delay. We're still, looks like we're getting it sorted out. Okay, so we're going to call the meeting back to order. We hope that the technical difficulties will be resolved. The next item on our agenda is 4.1, the Governing Board Recognition and Awards. We have 20 minutes set aside for this item. Is it Dolores Duran-Certa, our provost, who will be presenting this item?
Yes, I will be presenting. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Chairperson Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, colleagues and guests. It's my honor tonight to acknowledge students, community members, and also employees who have received an honor or some kind of recognition, an award, for example, or have contributed greatly to the college in some way. So it is my honor to read the names, and we first will start with the category of students. The first student is Miss Vanessa Valenzuela, who was inducted into the National Adult Education Honor Society. And actually the next few that I will be listing as names also have been inducted into the National Adult Education Honor Society. Next, we have Ms. Norma Alicia Velasco, Mr. Cornell Elam, Mr. Samer Altoca, Ms. Amina Mukhtar, Ms. Frohar Akbari, Mr. Jean-Claude Nyongabo, Ms. Anfal Hussein Hassan, Ms. Antonia Molina Grijalva, and Ms. Mariana Canetas Yerbes. So congratulations to all of these students who were inducted into the National Adult Education Honor Society. Our next category is community members. Mr. Daniel Davidson, longtime volunteer with Adult Basic Education for College and Career as a math tutor and math classroom aide. He was nominated for the Arizona Association for Lifelong Learning for the Volunteer Year of the Year Award last year and received it. So we congratulate him too. Also, as a community member, we have Ms. Allison Hughes, who donated archival materials from the time of her employment at the college to the college library. And she's actually has joined us here. And so we're very grateful for her contribution, her service to the college. And our final category is our employees. And we have 4 employees that I will list their names and also the reason of their being recognized tonight. First, we will start with Mr. David Arellano, nominated and selected as a winner of the 40 Under 40 Awards presented by the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We also have Ms. Carmen Salvo, completed her Doctorate of Education in Educational Leadership from Northern Arizona University. Her dissertation title is An Examination of Attributes for Success to Explain Failures in Community College Elementary Algebra. And this was completed during the pandemic. Wow, that's impressive. We also have Ms. Stephanie Dennison, recognized by the Arizona Association of Lifelong Learning as the 2020 AALL Rookie of the Year. Wonderful. And then our final recognition is to Ms. Consuelo Carrillo, named the Outstanding Teacher of the Year by the Coalition for Adult Basic Education. Coavi. So that completes the list of our students and community members and also employees who are going to be recognized tonight. We congratulate all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's been a tough year, but look at what you have done to strive and to thrive. So thank you very much. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Chairperson Klinko.
Thank you very much, Provost Rancerta. And congratulations to all of the individuals who received a recognition tonight. This board is incredibly proud of the work that you are doing. It enhances the richness of this institution and makes this district a better place to be part of. So thank you very much. And congratulations. Next, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize our outgoing student board representative, Sage Fukai McCullough. Sage, we wish you were here with us. It's been a very complex and strange year, but throughout it all, you have been attending our meetings and keeping us apprised of the issues facing students and the activities and important things going on across the college. We really appreciate your time and your commitment to this board. It really enhances our understanding and connection to the student body, particularly in this very difficult time. So we have an award to recognize you, and we'll be mailing this to you after the meeting this evening. So congratulations and thank you. Next, we have item 1.5, our remarks for the governing board. We have 25 minutes set aside for this, 5 minutes each. And I will just report that I had the pleasure of attending the all-college meeting, and it was, again, very inspiring to hear the breadth of vision and direction from all of the presenters. And it was great to see so many people participate through the online forum. And the comments on the side, it really provides an important voice and sort of clarity to the board in just sort of the temperature of how things are going. So thank you very much, and thank you, Chancellor Lambert, for your continued leadership in charting a path. Dr. Hay.
I have no comments today, thank you.
Ms. Garcia.
I just want to thank the people, congratulate the people that got the awards. You make Pima better and our community. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez. Oh, wait, I'm not sure that the audio is working. I think you just have to press the button.
No, I just want to echo what yourself and Maria mentioned, Ms. Garcia mentioned, the acknowledgement not only of the students but the faculty. I think it's great. It's outstanding. In this challenging time, I think it's good, very good. I just want to say just a few words in reference to our audience, but also to the community as a whole, just to be safe out there. It is a challenging time, but I know we'll pass through it, and I think it's just a matter of time, and we'll be back to norm. And we predict we're going to be opening up our classrooms, and that's coming out around the corner very soon. Thank you.
Ms. Ripley.
Hi, thank you. I also would like to congratulate all the awardees and also Vivian's team for the extraordinary work that they did. Congratulations. And again, I'd like to tell the listening audience that we're here. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and it's amazing and extraordinary what the staff and the admin and the faculty have been doing during this last tumultuous year. So I congratulate and I applaud everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have item 2, our reports, our administrative reports. The first is the AERC update with Ted Rausch, our campus vice president, and Dr. Audrey Conover, campus vice president. We have 5 minutes set aside for this item.
Good evening, everyone. Chairperson Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, colleagues and guests. Unfortunately, Ted has retired, but we do need to acknowledge his many years of service, and we do appreciate that. I'll be presenting this evening with my co-chair, Michaela Hayes, one of our math faculty. Tonight, we're just going to give you a brief overview of some of the work that's been done in the ERC and a really brief history for some of our newer board members. So with that, I'm going to quickly share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. For our newer members, we just want to let people know that the new AERC, the Employee Representative Council, came out of the previous meeting confer process. That was a process that we'd had for many years that met once a year as a collaboration between employee representative groups and the college administrators. And we really were looking for more ongoing dialogue that we could address issues and concerns, as well as an opportunity really just to make policy work better for everyone at the college. And thus the AERC was formed. The AERC represents all employee classifications. So we have members from our full-time adjunct faculty, exempt, non-exempt, temporary, and administrators, and really gives a chance to bring everyone together to the table. One of the changes that we had recently that I know some of you are aware of is that to get in line with state law changes, we wanted to make sure that we are recognizing the role of employee representative groups, but also make sure that we are following the new law that has been put forward. So we currently have one seat reserved in each one of the employee classifications so that we ensure that ongoing dialogue between the employee representative groups and the college. That does not mean that the other positions within the different classifications might not be from the employee representative groups, but it just ensures that we maintain that connection. So our role within the college, we are really focused on looking at board policy, employee policy, and finding out what is going well and what we need to work on. These policies range dramatically, everything from discipline to supervision to holidays and anything else you can think of. We also serve an important function because sometimes employees believe something is policy related and they want to change in policy, but we can act as a liaison and get them connected to the appropriate person so that they have the opportunity to address their concerns that might not be policy based. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michaela to talk about what we've been working on.
Thank you. So as Aubrey mentioned, I'm not Ted. I am co-chair of AERC starting this past January. And what we've done over the last,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Taken almost 2 years.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you just introduce yourself?
Sorry, Michaela Hayes. I'm math faculty. I teach at Northwest Campus and online and virtually right now.
Thank you very much.
And I'm also PCCEA Vice President. So the past couple of years, we've undertaken a rewrite of the employee handbooks. We had the common policy of faculty policy, exempt staff, non-exempt staff, and adjunct policy books. They were all separate and they were all negotiated separately. And what the AERC started as our task when AERC started was to take all of those policies and create one employee policy. And that has been completed and is now on the college website under AERC. Our goals were to eliminate redundancies and contradictions and give a little bit more equity between the groups. And there was also an interest from administration to separate processes from policies. And so that has been done as much as possible. But there's also still an interest from all the employees as well as administration to make sure that we have policies that are specific enough to guarantee or give as much as you can of a guarantee of equity across this large district. One of the things we've worked on is since posting all of these handbook policies and going through the large process is we've been made aware by HR of some policies that needed some updating to reflect current practices or that they weren't working as written. So we've gone through the process with several policies with HR over supervisor expectations, discipline procedures, and some Title IX updates where language needed to be updated to reflect law. Then that's worked really well. Future projects. We are working on looking at a faculty leave adjustment to allow for leave payout, similar to what all other full-time employees at the college get. We're working with ESC and putting language together that will work, and that is going to the ELT. There's a group working on language for remote work for employees. We've been doing so much remote work with COVID that if that's going to continue in any way, there really needs to be some policy to say who gets to do that, how much, and put some parameters on that so that there's equity. We will be looking at the class and comp study and bringing that into reviewing it, and also putting language to that for policy, especially if there's anything related, well, there will be things related to salary changes and so on. So we'll be the group to kind of take the idea and put it into policy. And there's also policies that are in transition. And what I mean by that is when we looked at all of the handbooks and created this one single handbook for everybody, there are some policies that were considered more process that used to be housed in policy and then now are not. And so we are keeping an eye on those things and figuring out where they go and how employees can still maintain that voice within them. Some of them they're kind of housed under the departments that apply them. So the provost's office, ESC, HR, things like that. One second, sorry. The class and comp review. We are going to be involved in the classification and compensation review in terms of putting things into language. One thing that we want to make sure that we recognize is that that's not our annual compensation discussion that the board policy calls for. So it is definitely a compensation discussion, and we're happy to be involved in that. But that is separate from an annual compensation discussion. So sorry, thank you. And last, opportunities for growth. So AERC is still fairly new, and there's a lot of opportunity to educate and outreach what we do to the college community as a whole. We had scheduled, or we were trying to schedule some campus tours to talk about the changes that we made to the policy, and then COVID hit. So now we will still want to do that when we return back to campuses and talk to people about what the process is and where these policies are found and how to get help if you need it. We would like to improve the ease of website submissions so that people can bring forward any problems they're seeing with policy. And we would like to make sure that all of the stakeholders, both users and those that apply, know the role of AERC and that we are used to address policy updates or concerns. This just ensures that we have one group with the college who's familiar with policy and able to change all of the little pieces that need to change when something is changed. And so that the AERC is that place, and we need to just make sure that our process is well known by everyone who uses it at the college, and that we have a common path through a policy change.
Excellent.
So
I think that is our last slide. And so Michaela and I are here to help answer any questions that the board may have.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. Can you just tell us how it's going? Like, I mean, is the process working? I think that was one of the reasons that we put this on the agenda. We'd hoped for sort of 6-month updates, and then because of COVID, we haven't had an update in a while. But is the process effectively working?
Yeah, so from, maybe I can take it from the administrative, and then we can, Michaela, speak from the faculty. Yeah, really, I mean, our goal with the changes for AERC was to have that ongoing dialogue. And I really do think that by doing so, we've been able to address a lot of things collaboratively. Even when we disagree, maybe, I really feel, at least that I hope it's true from everyone who's involved, that everyone at least has a chance to voice their concerns and their ideas. And the vast majority were able to move forward together. And I think it's been a real positive change from my perspective. Michaela?
I would say that we really only worked with the AERC process for the last 6 months to a year, even though we've been a group longer. The first year to 2 years was really that big, large overhaul of everything. And so, you know, that separating that out from what we've been doing as AERC, I think this last year we've really kind of hit a good groove on how we're working. We had an election process that we ran through. We have new representatives that just started in January. We now have a system for how we can create resolution teams and update the group. And we've managed to pass several votes on changing policy. So I think there is positives to it. Is there room for improvement? Of course. But I think right now it is going in a positive direction.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So, yes.
Sorry, it's not really, I don't know if it's my place or not, but someone asked if there was public comment still. And I just thought
yeah,
before
so-
I was done, I would throw that out there.
So we're looking at the schedule. Everybody, we had a deadline, a cutoff. We've gotten the notice that there was somebody else, and we're going to try to squeeze it in, depending if these reports wrap up on time. So that is the intent, because we have a very hefty schedule. Thank you very much. And I would say let's put this on an annual review now. Does that work for the pleasure of the board, that we would just get an update on the AERC annually as opposed to every 6 months? Does that work for everybody? You want to do 6 months? Okay, 6 months? Okay, so why don't we have you guys back in 6 months, and we'll get you on the calendar to give another updated report. Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have our campus police update with Buddy James, Chief of Police. Mr. James, you have 10 minutes for your item.
Good evening, honorable board members and Chancellor Lambert. I'm Buddy James, your Chief of Police, and I'm here to give you an update on college police matters. I can see our PowerPoint's being shared, but I want to introduce a couple members from my team that are here tonight, to include Commander Michelle Neuenhuis, who will celebrate 27 years with college here in a month or so, Commander Ricardo Gutierrez, and Lieutenant Jonathan Haywood. Some of the updates that I'd like to share with you is the completion of the LEMAP. The LEMAP was the Loaned Executive Management Assistant Program. In 2017, the college partnered with the LEMAP consultation group in a guided pathway to accreditation. They identified 120 issues that needed to be resolved for us to be eligible for accreditation. And I'm happy to tell you that we've completed all of those issues and that we've applied or submitted an application for accreditation, IACLIA accreditation. We have instituted a liaison program, which is a community policing model, where we have a specific officer assigned to each campus embedded with that team, where they go to all the meetings and activities that are associated with that campus and work hand in hand with all of the people that are on campus for each specific campus. We've been involved with lots of meetings and presentations to include student government, faculty senate, student senate, and we make ourselves available for all of those groups all the time to answer questions or be available to present. So let's see, can you hit the next slide, please? Some of the other things that we've been involved with, an after action review, we reorganized our police department based on the LEMAP reorganization, for a recommendation for reorganization in a little bit more of an efficient manner, where things aren't stovepiped, things move a lot quicker up above us in our chain. So we've been involved with COVID-19 testing and vaccination. I think we all have seen the many different activities in regards to that around all the campuses in the community college. And we've been had some updates with our PCC alert and hyperspike system. Hyperspike system is the mass notification system that has a loudspeaker on every campus that gives directions in case of an emergency. So we've been heavily involved with some of that as well. Can you hit the next? There you go. One more. I think we might have missed one, but some of the other things we've been involved with is community engagement. We've been, you may have seen a Special Olympics video that college police was involved with, and Toys for Tots. Our police command staff engaged in diversity and equity inclusion programs offered by the college. And we've been heavily involved in the last year, specifically with access and assets tracking and control during the COVID-19 response and recovery. So as you can see, we've enjoyed many successes, and I'm happy to be here to report those to you tonight. But I'd be remiss to not give credit of those successes to Vice Chancellor Bill Ward for his outstanding leadership and support of the college police team with all of these different things we've been having our hands involved with, especially COVID-19 being the challenge that we've all been facing the last year. So thank you very much. That's our presentation. And if you have questions for any of our team, we're all here to answer any of those.
Thank you very much. Chief James, is there any questions? Yes, Ms. Ripley.
Thank you, Chief James, for that presentation. And just to really quick, yeah, I want to applaud what you've been doing, especially with the vaccination process. It's a real community effort. Thank you for that. And also, real quickly, maybe in like 30 seconds, how's the robot doing?
The robot is doing very good. It's very popular. There are a lot of selfies are being taken with the robot. The company that we partnered with called Nightscope has the robot in a lot of different apartment complexes in Phoenix after we got the robot. And so it's doing great. And mentioned Dr. Dory has set up a little bit of a town hall for the downtown campus at some time in the future where we will be available to answer more questions and talk about the robot. But the robot's doing well and so far has been a fan favorite with a lot of the students and faculty on campus.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the chief? Oh, you have to.
So what does the robot do?
It's a mobile camera, for lack of a better term. You know, we have hundreds of cameras on all of our campuses, and the robot is a mobile camera. And it also has an emergency button that could be panic button that could be activated for direct access to the police dispatch. So that's, in a nutshell, what the robot does.
Okay, so that
Patrolling
means
the downtown campus. I'm sorry.
excuse me, so somebody's monitoring the camera on the robot, is that correct?
Somebody can be at any, so there's not someone sitting at any of our cameras, but we have access to get into a software program that we could get into that, but there's not someone specifically sitting at that camera or sitting at that software watching what the robot sees, but we can log into that system and see that just like we can with any other camera across any of our campuses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. We really appreciate all the work you're doing to keep us safe, especially in these unusual times, to make sure our campuses are secure, and we appreciate it.
We appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is our curriculum quality improvement, the CQI, with Dr. Lamada Mitchell, our Vice President and Academic Affairs and Student Learning, and Wendy Weeks, our Director of Academic Quality Improvement. You have 5
Chairperson
minutes.
Klinko, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, and it's my pleasure to introduce the team of Curriculum Quality Improvement. We have consolidated 2 offices, the Curriculum Office and the AQI, the Academic Quality Improvement. And it's now under the supervision of our Vice Provost, Dr. Lamada Mitchell. So I will now pass it on to her, who will introduce the team and the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Provost. Good evening, Chairperson Klinko, members of the board, and Chancellor Lambert, and members of the audience. We have 3 members of the team with us this afternoon. We'd like to share with you some of the updates that we have been able to accomplish, and that is Jason Brown, Stacy Norton, and Stephen Abels. Unfortunately, Wendy Weeks, Vanessa Romero, and Jennifer Torres are unable to be with us tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Lamada. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation here. And so the theme of our presentation is look what's happened in 2 short months. And this is involving specifically the catalog. We've made very substantial changes to the way that we do business in terms of the catalog. And so we'd like to present a sampling of the upgrades that we've made to the catalog in the last 2 months. We started out with a foundation of gathering analytics data about the catalog to drive our enhancements. Within a few weeks of gathering the data, we realized that greater than 1 in 5 of our visitors were accessing the catalog through a mobile device. As a result of that data, we prioritized optimization of the catalog for phones and tablets. So now, if you go to the catalog on your phone, you'll be able to view it easily. And the whole thing fits right in your pocket. Next, we noticed that some of the pages were being more visited than others. And further, we were able to track students to see what they were searching for. So using that, we put large buttons at the top of the catalog pages for everyone to easily navigate to exactly what they're looking for most often. And so that includes things like the catalog search, the programs at PIMA, and the course descriptions. Lastly, since implementing the changes to the catalog, we have seen strong growth in the number of visitors to our catalog. In fact, this week we're up nearly 20%. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass this on to Stacy Naughton, who can speak to the reach of our new catalog.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Good evening, I'm Stacy Naughton from the CQI team. So where in the world is PIMA's catalog? As Stephen mentioned, we're using Google Analytics to better enhance how the information in the catalog is displayed. And one way we have done this is by adding a Google Translate feature that allows users to access the catalog in over 100 languages. As displayed on the graph, through analytics, we can see that the catalog is being used all over the world. We have also used the data to create shortcuts to the most frequently used pages in the catalog. Those are now prominently displayed on the homepage, so students, staff, faculty, and the community can quickly find the information they're looking for. Even better, and one of my favorite new features of the catalog, is that with a click of a button, our students can now contact advisors and faculty based on the program of study they're interested in. With that, I'll turn it over to Jason Brown, who will take you through the other incredible new features of the catalog.
Thanks, Stacy. So what you can see here is a basic department page. Each department in the college has a page of information. And this, I'm showing you this one because it's a legacy page. This isn't what our pages are going to look like. Stephen, if you can go to the next slide. This is an enhanced department page. And as you can see, it's too big to fit on one page, but it includes items like the department head and contact information, a direct link to that department head's email. The same for advisors, showing the student which advisor they need to contact if they're interested in accounting programs. Lists all the full-time faculty that teach in that, and then lists all the programs, a direct link to that program in the catalog. The stuff that you can't see below that is there's highlights of the program, there's quotes from students. Many of the pages are giving us pictures to put on. And so we have a departmental pictures. So archaeology is a great example of that, where they have a whole bunch of pictures of students doing field activities. So we wanted you to know that the enhancements to the catalog are not just on the surface and not just in the user interface at the beginning, but deep in the catalog, we're adding more and more information. And I think with that, we could field any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Garcia?
Once somebody clicks onto your program for information, how soon does somebody respond to somebody's request? Is it online automatically? Do you have a time frame?
That would go straight to whomever they've clicked with it, whether it is the chair of the department or the dean or the program advisor. And we would like to have a response to the student within 48 hours. Some have done 24 hours response. That part of the response is out of our control, but we know that students have been so far pleased with the fast response that they have received when they've clicked on an email that takes them directly to a person and a name that they can follow up with.
Thank you.
Dr. Hay, did you have a question? No. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Great work. It's great to see a lot of these projects coming to fruition. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our update on board member statements asserting evidence about the Comprehensive Integrated Energy Management Program, RFP. Mr. Sylvan, our General Counsel, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me just set the context for this. So there was an April 19th study session, and one of the items on the study session was an update on the Comprehensive Integrated Energy Management Program. That's a program where, or a project rather, where the specific details are still under development. The point of it would be to do a significant update to college equipment and systems that manage our buildings, like the heating and cooling and the lighting systems, to achieve significant reductions in energy and the related utility costs, and also to create updated curriculum and a living lab environment where students who are taking certain construction and building trades and building management programs would have access to college-wide information and experience. So the reason for this update is at that study session, two board members made representations that they had received evidence indicating that a representative of the vendor who received the contract had written the RFP, which, if true, would represent a significant problem. So I followed up on that, and the point of this is to report back on to the board about that. So the specific information was requested. It hasn't been disclosed. And normally, if you need to figure out what happened based on, well, witness one said one thing and witness two said another, that can be difficult. In this case, though, we have the actual RFP document, which we can look at to see whether or not there might actually be evidence to support that allegation. So can we go to the next slide? And so what I wanted to do was just highlight some specific elements of the RFP. So what's projected on the screen here is, and I'm not going to go through the RFP, it's the whole thing, it's way too long, but what's up on the screen is the scope of work that the potential vendors for the project were asked to address. Those are assessing current systems and equipment, establishing and tracking sustainability related information, identifying and providing funding sources, implementing smart technology and data analytics, designing and implementing living labs, and promoting program awareness. Okay, so that's the scope of work, the description that they were asked to respond to. Next slide, please. In the responses, they were asked to provide the information that you see up on the screen, a description of their firm and who would be involved in the project, detailed evidence of their experience in similar projects, detailed evidence of their ability to develop a sustainable program, detailed evidence of experience implementing data analytics and business intelligence platforms, detailed evidence of experience partnering with academic organizations. Okay, next slide, please. And then what you see now is these are the selection criteria upon which the proposals were evaluated. Their market sector experience, project management and coordination approach, experience integrating systems into training programs and marketing, the evaluation of the project personnel, how they plan to staff the project, their cost proposal, and their references. So the point of this is if you look at all this information, there's nothing in there that's particular to any vendor or would give one vendor an advantage over another. In other words, the scope of the project, the information requested, and the selection criteria are all quite general and very common in the solicitations that we use and that other institutions use for comparable solicitations. And we also know that none of the companies that bid on this proposal expressed any concerns about the RFP language, that it was in any way favoring one vendor over another. The firms that bid on this project were all large companies. They've done public bidding before and have bid on and have been awarded contracts with other public entities, and so presumably should be aware that if they had a concern, they could have raised it, but they didn't. So the point of all this is whatever information might have been provided to board members, there's not evidence from the RFP itself that suggests in any way that any vendor influenced what the language in the RFP was in any way that might have favored one vendor over another. Next slide, please. So one concern I know that has been raised periodically when people have said they have information, but they're concerned about coming forward, and that is there is a written college policy that prohibits retaliation, that recognizes whistleblowing as a protected activity. This is an excerpt from the employee handbook that makes engaging in retaliation prohibited and warns employees that engaging in retaliatory actions can result in discipline up to and including termination. So I just want everyone to be comfortable that the college does in fact have a written policy that protects whistleblowing. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. And then finally, I wanted to put out there, if someone does have evidence, whether it's in this particular instance or in any case where they have a concern about improper actions happening, a violation of state law, a violation of policy, any concern like that, there's multiple ways that those concerns can be expressed or evidence shared. So I put my contact information up there. There's also the Office of Dispute Resolution that has an email address and a phone number that they answer. And then finally, if someone is really uncomfortable, we have a third-party vendor that provides an anonymous reporting service. The phone number is listed on the slide, as is the link to the website. And the way that works is someone can make a complaint or report a problem either using that phone number or the website. That will generate a report to the college. It does not disclose who they are. It does not disclose their phone number, their address. We don't have any way to know who they are. So if someone is really concerned, there is a truly anonymous way for individuals to provide information. We can actually communicate with them through this website. We can message them through the website, so we can communicate with them, still protecting their anonymity. We don't know who it is, so we can collect evidence and do follow-up. So I just wanted to put that out there in case there is, like I said, in this case or any other case, we have multiple ways for individuals to report information, including anonymously. So hopefully that can at least resolve this particular question.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Ms. Garcia?
I would like to read a statement, if you can allow me.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
First of all, Jeff, I just want you to know that I believe that the policies that are in place are great if people follow them, including myself. But the other thing, so I'm going to read this statement. I'm going to leave out some names for various reasons. Okay, so there are well-established procedures involved in drafting RFPs that deal with procurement of goods and services. You have stated that someone has stated they were solely responsible for drafting the energy management RFP. And I have to state this, as Vice Chancellor for Finance, it is my opinion that you do not possess the qualifications to have played any role in drafting the energy management RFP. Further, you failed to involve the subject experts in our facilities department. I have repeatedly asked for a detailed evaluation or assessment to assure that the total expenditures I am being asked to approve is the best value for our taxpayer dollars. To date, I have received none. If the information I have received none of the information I have requested, I should inform you that as a board member, I have the right, obligation, and fiduciary responsibility to consult with experts in the field in question. I will do this in order to independently verify that I am voting for something that will maximize the benefit to our taxpayers and eliminate the risk of loss or waste. I am responsible to my constituents, and I feel that in my best interest of my constituents, I must demand that I be provided with any and all information that I request before I am asked to spend tax dollars. You must understand that the board is responsible to approve expenditures in an open and transparent institution. I would not have to be telling you this, whether I am in the majority or not is not an issue and should not play no role in fulfilling a board member's request for information. As for the person entrusted with the preparation of budgets, I trust I will not have to remind you again that your responsibility to provide members with information so that we may make informed decisions. So based on this statement that I am making, I am saying that there's a lot to be desired, in my opinion. It is my opinion. And we have received information, and I can't state the name, but from a vendor stating that this person actually stated that this RFP was not written by the person questioned.
So I understand that, but the evidence, the best evidence, which is the RFP, does not support that allegation. So it may be that you received information which is not correct. And of course, we're fully prepared to answer your questions. We had a study session on this very topic and you didn't attend, which would have been an opportunity to ask questions. But be that as may, absolutely please provide your questions, submit your questions. We are more than happy to provide that information so the board, all board members can make a fully informed decision and feel comfortable that they have the information.
Okay, but I have already requested that information on the assessment, and I have yet to receive it.
And I asked a follow-up question to help clarify what you're looking for, and you didn't respond to that. So one of the problems we have here is we need to have a detailed conversation so we can understand exactly what it is that you're looking for so that we can provide that information. And so my suggestion is, so we clearly need to have some follow-up conversation, and as I think the board members already know, there certainly will be further board meetings where the subject of this project is on the agenda, and all board members will have an opportunity to receive additional information, ask whatever follow-up questions they feel appropriate. So again, the point of all of this is to make sure that you and all board members get the information that you need so you can feel comfortable you're making a fully informed decision. We all understand as staff that's absolutely our responsibility to assist you in carrying out your responsibilities.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from any board members? Okay, so I just will close with a comment, and I have said it before, and I am sure we will continue to talk about this. The governing board bylaws, Article 12, provides a detailed responsibility for board members on how to handle complaints when they come forward. It is spelled out. This is the guiding document that is ratified by this board that provides the framework for how complaints should be handled. By not handling them in this way, this is set up to protect the college, to protect individual board members, to limit risk. I mean, that's really what this is about, is so that the institution isn't sued and that individual board members aren't sued, because in the past, people came with complaints to board members, and board members, in at least one very well-documented case, didn't take action in an appropriate way, and there were multiple lawsuits, and people resigned. It was a very detailed, I mean, it ultimately ended up the college. It was part of the reason the college ended up on academic probation from the accreditors, because the board isn't following its own policy. And by not following policy, we are also validating individuals who work for this institution to not follow the stated employment policies by not following this guideline. And it is undermining the ability of this institution to function well. It's undermining the ability of this board to function well, and it really has to stop. And I'm going to leave it at that, but I mean, this board will have to take some sort of significant action if it continues, because it is creating havoc in the system. Okay.
I would like to offer,
yes,
just for
Ms.
the
Ripley.
listening audience, that we are having a board retreat over the next 2 days, and the public needs to know that. And I think there are a lot of things that need to be discussed amongst us at this retreat, these topics being one of them. And I think that with the past year being secluded with COVID, I'm going to blame things on COVID, of course, but I think that we really do need to come together and talk frankly, with transparency about this and several other issues as a board together. And I think in the next two days, hopefully we'll resolve some of these issues. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ripley. Our next item on our agenda is our Culture of Care with Dolores Duran-Certa, our Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Excellence, and David B., Executive Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration.
Thank you, Chairman Klinko. So Dr. B and I are going to be presenting on building on our culture of care. And I'd like to provide some context for this. So at the last board meeting, our faculty board rep, Brooke Anderson, brought up faculty burnout issues. And as board member Ripley stated, this has been a tumultuous year with the pandemic, with social and racial unrest, a lot of stress, with faculty, of course, with all the different classes that they had to put on virtual and online, make that pivot, make sure their students are engaged and retaining students. And also our staff and administrators have gone through a lot of stress And some have been, like, for example, in facilities, our police officers have been nonstop. They never took a break. They've been working consistently since the beginning of COVID. So we need to make sure that we address the culture of care, our well-being as human beings, as employees, as family members, and also those of our students. I think we are doing a great job addressing the issues with our students. We've had town halls. They've really responded to what their needs are, and we are addressing those. But we also need to look at our employees, our internal family, and make sure that we're taking care of each other, basically. So with that, we got together with a group, and it was Dr. B, Denise Morrison from Employee Services, Dr. Lamada Mitchell, our Vice Provost, Hilda Ladner, our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, and Kate Schmidt, our Executive Director for Faculty Affairs and Development, and myself. So we got together and kind of brainstormed on some ideas as to what we can do to improve and build on our culture of care. So with that, I'm going to share the next slide, and Dr. B is going to share with you what we have done so far, and then we'll go on to the next steps. Dr. B?
Good evening, Chairperson Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, colleagues, guests. As Dolores, I think, referenced, the college prides itself on having a holistic and caring relationship with our employees. And so I want to start today and sort of give sort of the legacy, the foundational premise of our relationship with our employees. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what has happened more recently and how we've responded to it. So this slide, which is admittedly very busy, and I could probably talk about each component of this for probably individually for a half an hour or an hour. What it basically highlights is that we have a legacy of prioritizing compensation, which includes a total perspective of compensation. That's not only pay, but it includes having a rich and robust set of college-funded and voluntary benefits available for our employees. We have good leave policies in terms of sick leave, annual leave that's available for employees to utilize, and then holiday and recess pay. We also have a number of support services, including a recognized, statewide, it's recognized and program of wellness that is, I think that it's been going on for, I think about 7 years now, and gets stronger and stronger every year, providing all kinds of wellness related activities for employees that range from physical wellness, mental wellness, and then also it includes financial wellness. So we know that we've been through in the last 10 years, 2 different financial crises of different types, and having that available to employees is important also to help them navigate the challenges of these difficult times. I'm not going to belabor all of the employee the benefits. The board, we talk about those, and the board has approved increases and enhancements to a number of those benefits in recent years, including this year, with particularly with short-term disability. On top of that, looking at how we approach our employees and the professional development opportunities we provide, we have a robust program of professional development opportunities. We have strong funding available, healthy funds available for employees to get external professional development opportunities. And then to ensure that we keep track and monitor how things are going with our employees, there are a number of metrics that we take a look at, things that would indicate in an unhealthy organization things of concern. And these are things that we monitor to ensure that we don't have problems, that include employee turnover, recruitment success. So sometimes when you have failed recruitments over and over again, it might be an indication that the compensation is off versus what the market rates, market wages are. And then we have to adjust that and take that into consideration. That's happened a number of times over the years. And then employee relations and dispute resolution. So trying to work out the most satisfactory and best solution possible when there are conflicts. So let's move to the next slide, Dolores. Thank you. So we went into a unique situation about a year ago that none of us have experienced in our lives. And we actually ramped up our response, trying to recognize the challenges that employees were experiencing and trying to maintain really good contact and connection with our employees. So that included providing a much more enhanced virtual offerings of our wellness activities. We scheduled a mammography ban so that people could come on site in a safe way to get that kind of care, because we knew that a number of providers weren't easy to get access to. And so trying to provide those kinds of opportunities for folks. We have used our employee assistance program, I think, in a really productive and progressive way, which is that we encourage employees who are individually having issues to get in touch with employee assistance. That is, then they refer employees to get counseling, whether, again, that can be financial counseling, that could be marital counseling, it could be just individual counseling. They get triage through that program to get the kind of support they need. And so we have individual programs, but we've also been really good as an employer that when there is a crisis that happens at the college, something that might be particularly stress-inducing, that we've created group sessions so that we've had our provider, Jorgensen Brooks, come on site and have group sessions for people to sort of debrief. That's when it was on site. And what we've been doing in the COVID situation is having virtual group sessions for people to talk about and be able to open up about some of the challenges they're experiencing, whether it's, dealing with trying to work while you have kids at home, things like that, all the things that people are experiencing that have been particular challenges. And you see the stats that in the last year, 344 of our employees have used EAP services during the year, which is a pretty significant proportion of our employees. We've also encouraged all supervisors to do routine touch base points, so they giving contact employees. We're working remotely, people can be distant, making sure that our supervisors are actually in regular contact with the employees and make sure that everybody's doing okay, and if they need help, how to get the help. And then some of the more practical things we've done is we've actually relaxed our leave policies. People weren't able to take leave, so a number of people were coming up against their leave max caps. So we actually extended what the caps were for a while. We also liberalized our leave buyout program so that people didn't lose the leave that they weren't able to use. And that also financially helped people because they were able to buy out and get a little additional money to help if they had particular challenges. So those are a number of the things that we did that were specific to the situation of the last year. And then now we'll go and I'll turn this back over to Dolores to talk a little bit about the brainstorming for how to deal with where we're at now.
Thank you. So in addition to our group that met a few times to brainstorm, we reached out to the college internal community for inquiries about short-term ideas. For example, Dr. B asked staff council to submit any ideas, brainstorming ideas they had. I asked Faculty Senate. Also at Friday's virtual all college meeting, I asked all employees, please submit your ideas to either Dr. B or to myself. And over the weekend and through today even, I've been receiving some, and I'm sure Dr. B has too. So we're compiling a list of all the different wonderful suggestions that are coming our way. The most common ones that we've seen is compensation. Another common one is reducing class sizes. Another one is faculty load. Just a couple more examples. Physical therapy type of videos, like we've had the yoga videos, but more physical therapy type, making sure people are standing up and stretching. Also, another popular one was flexible remote work options. It seems like for a lot of folks, working remotely has worked very well due to their personal situations or whatever the situation is, then they've been very productive. So those were some of the most common suggestions that we've received thus far. And then as you see on the screen, we have different options as well. So with the day of relief, and I'll ask Dr. B to elaborate a little bit more, but this is more of an extra day of pay. So Dr. B, if you'd like to elaborate on that point, please.
Yeah, so what we're talking about with the day of relief, it works a little bit different depending on the type of employee. But the idea is recognizing that we've all endured a lot in this last year, and that that the college could recognize employees in some fashion with this. The concept is like a day of relief, and where it would be for staff people, it would be a day where they arrange with their supervisor to just take a day, an extra day off. And why it's a little bit different depending on employee types is because by the time that the semester ends, which is very soon, faculty go off contract. And so the idea with the day of relief would be, and then we'll talk more with the board at the study session on Friday about this, because there's a little bit of budgetary implication with this idea, but that we would on a one-time basis provide faculty with an extra day of pay. So it's sort of recognizing that this day of relief, but they're off contract. So it would be an extra day of pay that would happen while they're off contract, or to start the contract year. And so because there's a budgetary impact, we're going to need to talk about it in relation to the budget and the study session on Friday. But that's the idea of it. And oh, go ahead, sorry.
I don't think anybody said anything.
Oh, sorry, I heard something. I guess my head is making, someone's talking in my head. Sorry. Anyway, so that's the idea with the day of relief. It's really recognizing we have endured a lot in this last year, and just really have a day for people to just de-stress and be able to get away from for a little bit. So that's what that day of stress, or day of relief, that we're not going to create a day of stress, a day of relief. That's what that's about.
Thank you, Dr. B. And I was just reminded by Dr. David Duray that he met with Staff Council leadership to get some ideas as well. And Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Duray, and I met with the ACES group membership, and about reentry, and then about ideas of how to resolve stress and burnout. So another item that you see here is addressing individually through divisions or units, meeting times, email stress, maybe, for example, scheduling, instead of interacting on email at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning when you wake up, or during the weekend, schedule it for a weekday at 8 a.m. or at work time. So people are not seeing emails and then they think, okay, I need to respond on a Sunday evening or something like that. So that's something that can be discussed within each division and unit. Also, expanded use of leave. And then the final suggestion is August Day of Wellness. So when people come back, or as they're coming back for the fall semester, we want to hold some activities that help employees to feel reinvigorated. It's also a time when we hopefully will be more face-to-face by that time, and just getting to reconnect on a face-to-face way instead of virtually. So this includes optional activities with other team employees, virtual yoga, et cetera. So we have a long list also of possibilities. So this is just a taste, an update for you, since it was requested from the last board meeting, and this is continuous conversation and dialogue. We'll continue dialoguing and with our employees as to more ideas. For the employees that are hearing tonight, if you'd like to continue sharing ideas with Dr. B and myself, please do so through email. Like I said, we're compiling a list, and we'll be reviewing that list and assessing it and continuing the conversation for ideas on how to build on our culture of care. Dr. B, do you have anything else to add? I think that pretty much completes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you both very much for all your work. Next, we have our reports by representatives of the board. The first is our student report from Sage Fukai McClug.
Hello, thank you guys for having me, and this will be my final governing board meeting, so thank you guys again. For virtual adult education, this month we are launching the virtual financial coaching office hours and the All About Government in Your Life, Learn How to Make Your Voice Heard series. ABECC's Student Engagement Program currently is collaborating with ABECC's Leadership and PCC Media team, newest project, the Adult Education Inspirational Posters and Videos. These student stories will aid promoting awareness about adult education in our community and statewide. Thanks, Pima. For virtual student life, we have the Student Senate election results. The voting for the 2021-2022 Student Senate was held from March 31st to April 16th virtually via D2L. 259 votes were cast, an increase of 180 votes from the previous election. And the 2021-2022 Student Senate is Colin Bryant for Desert Vista, Miguel Barrera for Downtown, Carla Wilson for East Campus, Sage Hawkins for East Campus, Alyssa Saunders for Northwest Campus, Rachel Graniva for Northwest, Maximus Luevos for West Campus, Jacqueline Wirt for West Campus, and then Andrea Salazar Caltron for Pima Online, and Namatra Patel for Pima Online. And then there was also the annual Student Leadership Awards. The winners were announced May 3rd through the 7th, 2021 via social media and email. And then they also have online Connect You via D2L. 143 students completed in the 2020-2021 school year as of April 19th, 2021. And they also have Career Cafe on Thursday, May 6th from 1 to 3 p.m. via Zoom. And then for Virtual Student Senate, the PASS of the 2020-2021 are wrapping up their terms for the year. The Student Senate has assisted in committees, virtual town halls, the JADE program, and created the Discord platform to promote online student engagement. The final project, Community Safety, has been recorded and will be available for future students as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will be sending you your recognition in the mail. So again, thank you for all of your service to our board over the last year. Next, we have our adjunct faculty report with Sean Mendoza. Mr. Mendoza, you have 5 minutes.
Chairman Klinko, Chancellor Lambert, members of the board, and honored guests. Earlier this year, the adjunct faculty, with support of the Provost Office, began to address some of the more pressing issues regarding our employee group. Led by Kate Schmidt of the Provost Office, a team consisting of adjunct faculty, college administration, and staff employed a design thinking process approach to tackle concerns of compensation, communication, and equity. I'm happy to report that the group is working to finalize our recommendation to the Provost in the coming days. I look forward to sharing these outcomes with you when we return in the fall. Speaking of the fall, I'd like to thank college administration, specifically Dr. Dolores Duran-Certa and Dr. Lamada Mitchell, for the expanding campus access questions and answers document shared with full and part-time faculty. This document addressed a number of concerns by adjunct faculty returning to the classroom in the fall. We appreciate the institution's efforts to keeping our students and college community safe during this unprecedented time. I hope that the college will continue to update and communicate this document as we begin to find our new sense of normalcy. Thank you for your efforts. Lastly, as we begin our summer activities, please continue to keep your thoughts on our global and local friends and family affected by violence, unrest, and this COVID pandemic. Thank you. This ends my report to the board.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our staff report with Michael Lopez.
I don't have a written report, but I do want to say, Chancellor, Chairman Klinko, board, guests and colleagues, it's been quite a year and we've gone through so much, and really I want to commend the students for just being so strong and brave and getting through this the way they have, and definitely our administration and our faculty, adjunct faculty, our staff, our part-time staff, all our board members, everyone that is involved with PIMA and the decision-making. It's just been quite a year, and I think PIMA has grown and has come together in many ways, and we have some hope for a real promising 21-22 academic year. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lopez. Next, we have our faculty report with Brooke Anderson. Ms. Anderson, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Chairman Klinko, board members, Chancellor, fellow employees and guests. Faculty Senate held its last meeting of the semester on May 7th. The Faculty Senate Systemic Justice Action Committee has continued to work on the Unteaching and Unlearning Summit, scheduled to take place September 7th through the 10th. This summit will be open to the entire college students, faculty, staff, and administration, with the goal of bringing people together to listen, share, collaborate, heal, feel, think, process, understand, and work to solve problems. All Pima Community College faculty and staff are invited to submit brief proposals for the summit using the form linked on my report. Instigated by the current COVID-19 situation in India, members of the Faculty Senate Systemic Justice Committee have co-signed a letter attached to my report, authored by Dr. Josie Milliken, that acknowledges the suffering caused by the pandemic that is far from over, and that offers some ways to act during this difficult time. This letter was shared with Lisa Brodsky and sent out on the all faculty listserv. Discussions about faculty burnout are continuing, as noted by the provost and Dr. B this evening. Faculty appreciate that college leadership, including this board, are concerned about burnout in our community and want to decrease this problem, and that Dolores recognized that faculty burnout is connected to working conditions, like compensation, class size, faculty load, and flexible in-person and virtual work expectations. AP 1.01.03 is being collaboratively revised. A group of faculty, including Michaela Hayes, Mateo Bogashak, Dr. Tal Sutton, and Dr. Josie Milliken, volunteered to participate. After 2 productive meetings in April, meaningful revisions have been made, and the group hopes to complete their revisions and post the AP by summer. Information about this summer's teaching strategies workshop was recently distributed to faculty. The event will focus on student engagement, reflective practice, and discipline-specific, equitable, inclusive practices. The event is scheduled to take place on Saturday, August 7th from 8:30 to 12, virtually and at the downtown campus. Those interested in presenting can complete the form that is also linked to my report. As for faculty notable accomplishments, like Michael just acknowledged and so many others have, this has been a difficult year for everyone. Yet faculty still continue to thrive and do amazing things. Amanda McPherson, early childhood education faculty, myself, writing faculty, Dr. Diana Rep, anthropology faculty, and Tawana Wilson, math faculty, were all nominated for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Awards. And Dr. Diana Rep, anthropology faculty, is receiving the 2021 Diversity and Inclusion Education Award. She was nominated by Margie Youngo for prioritizing equity, diversity, and inclusion in her teaching and leadership work. Dr. Josie Milliken, writing faculty, will be delivering a presentation titled Rise Up, Rise Together, Bias and Microaggressions on June 3rd at the 2021 Arizona Women in Higher Education Conference. Julia Guseva, writing faculty, Anna Jimenez, math faculty, and Yvonne Sandoval, math faculty, have been selected to serve as associate instructional designers for the 2021-2022 academic year. And thanks to Dr. Josie Milliken's leadership, 12 faculty will be 2021 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Open Pedagogy Fellows, which is a global award-winning fellowship that offers faculty the opportunity to learn how open pedagogy, interdisciplinary and cross-institutional connections and community engagement can be intertwined to transform teaching practices and students' learning experience. Amanda McPherson, early childhood education, Anne Browning-Aiken, anthropology, Kathy Thwink, writing, Cora Varas-Nelson, biology, Courtney Webb, student success, Darian Qureshi, political science, James Sheldon, math, Jameson Crabtree, writing and literature, Lena F. Thandawi, Paralegal Studies, Peter Akshakse, Political Science, Rachel Hornby, CAD, Sarah Jansen, Philosophy and Religion, and I apologize for anyone's name who I just butchered there. Congratulations. This summer, these faculty will
You have about
team
20
up
seconds left.
with faculty from other institutional partners to learn how to develop renewable assignments that will help students achieve global justice through open pedagogy work using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have our administrative report with Jeff Thies. Jeff, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Chairperson Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, students, colleagues, and guests. I'm reporting tonight on spotlighting the Applied Technology Division, following up on some device distribution information, and then sharing some important data at the end. In Applied Technology, the team would like to congratulate Ken Bice, Welding Department Head, on his retirement. Ken, thank you for leading a great program in such a small space. We appreciate your 17 years of service to our students. Applied Technology was honored to host the 46th annual car show on April 24th. Thanks to the Tucson Street Rod Association for donating over $20,000 to PIMA's Applied Technology programs. Be sure to watch the virtual ribbon cutting for the new Automotive Technology and Innovation Center at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, May 18th on PCC TV. Thanks to the local chapter of the National Association of Women in Construction for recognizing 10 construction and CAD students with support kits as they pursue their careers. The AIT Robotics program enjoyed working with the TRIO team at Desert Vista to offer Sunnyside High School students an introductory robotics course. And lastly, from Applied Technology, PIMA Applied Technology students first participated in the University of Arizona's Engineering Design Day competition in 2019-20. This year, 2 CAD students helped keep our winning streak alive, so we're 2 for 2 in winning the Best Design Documentation Award. This is a testament to our students' efforts, the CAD faculty and staff support, and Carmen Cueva's leadership. Great job, Applied Technology Division. As you all know, we provided devices last summer using CARES Act funding. The library and ed tech have been looking into the impact of the CARES Act device loaning program implemented last summer and has the following preliminary findings. The fall to spring persistence rate of students who borrow devices such as laptops, tablets, and hotspots is 20% higher than the persistence rate of non-borrowers. Also, when asked the question, if you hadn't been able to borrow the device, how would you have completed your classes this past year? 1/3 of the students said they would not have been able to. They did not have another plan or option. Kudos to the great job of the library and ed tech staff for providing devices to students this past year. And last but not least, kudos to the placement coaches, mathematics faculty, dual enrollment staff, and student affairs staff and administrators for elevating the multiple measures process and providing math pathways that match student programs. By providing access to an increasingly larger pool of students that have recently graduated from high school, the efforts are making a difference in this critical early milestone for degree completion. For example, in one cohort, 17 to 19-year-old Latinx students' access to and success in gateway math courses has more than doubled since 2015-16, helping to close the equity gap. And that ends my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Chancellor's report, but before I hand it over to the Chancellor, we did have an additional request to speak at the call to the audience, which came in late, and so this will be the last time that we entertain this, but we will allow it this time. Please get your requests in prior to the cutoff. Matej Borzak? Can we elevate him? Is he still on the call?
Hello, good evening.
Matej, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was under the impression I had sent the request on time. Good evening, Board Klinko, board members, colleagues, and guests. My name is Matej Boguszak, and it is so good to see you all in the community room. I can't wait to be back on campus in the fall, and again, really proud to be a PIMA employee. Tonight, I wanted to provide some additional context for the budget discussion on behalf of PCCA. I've emailed you a presentation and pasted a link in the chat so everybody can follow. First, please know how much the employees appreciate the attempts to finally do something tangible about our salaries, which have been stagnant due to a 7-year suspension of steps and currently running about 7% behind inflation, meaning we're earning less today in real terms. So thank you, board, for considering at least a temporary measure now that the budget picture has improved. And thank you, Dr. B, for your work and advocacy on this, not to mention your long-term, diligent financial stewardship and service to our college. I'd be remiss not to point out some deeply troubling trends over the last several years, though. You'll note that the expenditures on instruction are being kept mostly flat for next year, while institutional support, which is mostly administration, is up by 8%. That in itself would not raise too many eyebrows, I think. But if we examine this trend going back 2, 4, 8 years, expenditures on instruction have actually declined ever so slightly, while instructional support has shot up by 30 to 40%, depending on how you measure this. Looking strictly at salary expenditures for full-time faculty for a minute, they're down 24% since 2012. Understandable, right? Since we've been losing students and cutting the budget. Yet administrator salary expenses have only been reduced by 9%, almost 3 times less. Since 2014, when step progression was suspended, the chancellor's salary is up almost 15%, the average administrator salary up by 7%, and full-time faculty, 1%. Even among the administration, the benefits have accrued exclusively to top-level administrator, executive or deputy positions. Several people got 5-figure raises through steps and reclassifications, so $10,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 raises for essentially the same job. The chancellor created 3 new executive administrative positions just this year. That's a 43% increase in E92.
You have 20 seconds left.
Yet not a single dean got a single step. Even the chancellor acknowledged we are not paying competitive salaries to some of our academic administrators, and our dean of allied health resigned to pursue another opportunity. There's so much more to this, but bottom line is that select favored individuals were prioritized for early, permanent, inconsistent raises, not based on policy, and before the conclusion of the class and comp study that everybody else has kept waiting for, at a time of great resource scarcity and low morale. I will not get to finish this with additional time. Would you give me a couple more minutes?
I think we really have a very robust schedule, but we did receive your email, I'm sure all of the board members will look at it. And again, this is just the first step in our budget discussion this evening, so hopefully we'll continue to hear communications from you.
All right, thank you so much for listening and for your service.
Okay, next we have our Chancellor's report. Chancellor Lambert.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of the faculty, staff, students and administrators and the board for the incredible work we've done over the last year plus 2 months. I mean, who could have imagined that we would be in this situation that we found ourselves in? But we demonstrated our resilience and our ability to just stay focused on the mission and make sure that we deliver on the promise for our students and community. So I applaud each and every one of you for what you have done to make sure we get there for our students. Speaking of our students, don't forget graduation next week, May 19th, 7 p.m. Hopefully everyone will be able to tune in to, hopefully which will be our last virtual graduation, and then the following year we can go back to the Tucson Convention Center and have our normal face-to-face with our families and friends and our students. Instead of going into certain items, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the larger macro forces that are happening. We hear about climate, we hear about race, we hear about the health pandemic, but here's another concept for everybody, and that's called sansdemic. And what sansdemic is there's just not enough people. And so a study was just published by EMSI. That's a group that we depend on for a lot of our data. And what they're concluding is, going back as far as 1970, the low fertility rate at that time was 2.1. It has not improved since then. In other words, in our country, we are not replacing folks, and that's going to become a serious problem for our country. But it doesn't stop there. Our labor force participation rate has also been falling over that same period of time. In the United States, it is 61.7%. In the state of Arizona, it's about 59.7%. In Pima County, it's 58.2%. These trends, if they continue, will signal a serious shift in how every facet of our lives will be shaped. You know, we don't have to look too far to understand the seriousness of all of this. Go to Japan, where they have been experiencing this in a much more acute way. This is a problem that's going to affect the size of our institution. It's going to affect our tax collections. It's going to affect, police, fire. All of those services are going to be impacted as we go forward. So the more we can do to try to support each and every individual out there and get them the kinds of skills they need is going to be ever more critical. We don't have folks to waste anymore. Every individual is talented, and we need to make sure we develop that talent so that they will be available to live out their hopes, dreams, aspirations, and goals. So just keep in mind that's our role, is to pay attention first and foremost to these macro forces, and that shape policy around that to make sure then we're operationalizing the large pieces and then ultimately tactically implementing them. And that's what we've been doing the last 8 years. And I hope that we can continue to stay focused on where that puck is going. So I'm going to leave it at that. I know it's a long night. We still have a number of other items, so I'll just conclude with saying thank you to Lisa Brodsky. Lisa's husband got a nice job in the Tampa Bay, Florida area, so she will be departing us. And the end of her last day will be the end of this month. So thank you, Lisa, for your service to Pima. Best of luck to you and your family in the Tampa Bay, Florida area. You'll be missed.
Thank you, Chancellor Lambert, and good luck to Lisa Brodsky. Next, we have our information items. Mr. Sullivan, if you could read the information items, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The information items that were included with the materials for this evening's board meeting include the February 2021 financial statements, employment information, which has one new hire, several retirements and separations, faculty hiring, 2 individuals who've been hired as faculty in the aviation program, a list of individuals who have been certified to serve as adjunct faculty at Pima Community College, modifications to Administrative Procedure 3.26.01 on course materials. This administrative procedure was revised to address some comments and clarify standards regarding textbook selection that emerged during the process of developing a board policy on academic freedom. Next item we have is a description of a grant program at the Desert Vista campus for the Health Professions Opportunity Grant. This is a grant that's been in place for a number of years. It has recently been extended for a 6-year with an additional $3 million of funding. Next, we have information regarding the distribution of coronavirus relief funds under the act that is known commonly as CRISA. Next, we have a description of a grant program, another grant program from the federal government. This is additional coronavirus pandemic relief funds. The board report provides a listing of how those funds were distributed. And then finally, we have another information item which lists how funds were used from the federal allocation to Pima Community College as a minority serving institution.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our consent agenda. Mr. Sullivan, if you could read the consent items, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent agenda items for this evening are the minutes of the April 14, 2021 executive session, minutes from the April 14, 2021 regular meeting. We also have minor updates to Board Policy 9.01, which relates to information technology resource management. Next, we have the receipt of awarding of a sub-recipient agreement under with the National Institute of Metalworking Skills, which would assist the college in delivering services under an industry apprenticeship grant. Next item is a recommendation for the execution of intergovernmental agreements with the Arizona Board of Regents for the Pima College to participate in what's called the Public Allies program, in which individuals through partially funded where individuals provide services that are partially funded through federal monies, excuse me. The next item is a execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Pima County Sheriff's Department for the provision of educational services by the college, particularly adult basic education at the sheriff's detention facility, the county's detention facility. Next item is the recommendation for the execution of an educational services agreement with El Rio Community Health Center, wherein the college would provide educational services to employees of El Rio. The next item we have is recommendation for amendments to several dual enrollment agreements with a variety of schools to add additional sites and classes that include in the Amphitheater School District, the Pima JTED, Marana School District, Patagonia Union High School District, Sunnyside Unified School District, Vail Union School District, the Presidio Charter School, and also St. Augustine Catholic High School. The next item is approval of a renewal contract with Accruent. That is the software services firm that provides the famous software that facilities uses to manage its operations and requests for services. The agreement would extend from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2026 at a total cost not to exceed $994,260. Next, we have a recommendation for execution of a contract with Swaim Associates for design services for a Center of Excellence for Public Safety and Security at the East Campus. Total cost for the agreement not to exceed $350,000. Next, we have a request for authorization to execute an agreement with the Arizona Communication Experts to upgrade fiber optic cabling around community college facilities. The costs for this agreement are not to exceed $727,652. Next, we have a request to reactivate a certificate for direct employment in the hotel and restaurant management area. Next, we have a request to inactivate a mechanical designer CNC programmer certificate for direct employment. Next, we have a request to inactivate a certificate for direct employment in fashion design. Next, we have a request for approval of the new mission fulfillment framework statement on purpose, vision, mission, and behaviors. The specifics of that are contained in the board report. Next, we have a request for delegation of authority to purchase information technology equipment for high-flex classrooms. Total purchases not to exceed $2,947,500. And finally, we have a request for authorization to execute an agreement or agreements to purchase network and data center equipment to enhance the information technology infrastructure at the college, particularly through the installation of uninterruptible power supplies. This is funded through some of the federal pandemic relief funds at a cost not to exceed $700,000.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Sure. Yes, of course.
Okay, the program and activation for the mechanical design 4.13. Can you give me an explanation as to why that is happening?
Why don't we pull the item and then we can discuss it separately, and then we can vote on it separately if that works. And it's item
4.13.
4.13. Okay, great. So we have a motion. Did we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and this is with the withdrawal of 4.13. Okay, all in favor? Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes unanimously with 14.3 considered separately. So we'll take 14.3.
It's 4.13, just to clarify.
4.13. So let's take 4.13 separately. First, can we have a motion to approve the recommendation of passage? Of 4.13, and then we'll have a discussion about it, if that
So
works.
moved.
So moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay, discussion. Ms. Garcia.
Gotta go.
ahead. Excuse me? You just have to speak into the microphone, though.
Okay, so I have a question as to why that's going to be removed. Has there been some studies done that the enrollment isn't there, or it's not required in industry anymore?
Chancellor Lambert?
So I'm going to ask our provost to come speak to this specifically. I just want you to be aware we do a program review process, and part of that program review process, we look at, different certificates, different degree programs, look at enrollment, look at all those different patterns to determine whether there's viability for whether it's a certificate or a degree. So I'll have Dolores speak to, or she may ask for someone else to speak directly to this particular one. Dolores?
Yes, thank you, Chancellor Lambert. I will explain a little bit, and I will also refer it to our Vice Provost, Dr. Lamada Mitchell, for this particular inactivation. So as the Chancellor explained, we do a robust program review where the program itself is assessed. We work closely with the dean and the department heads and the faculty to assess the actual certificate or degree, and looking at various items such as enrollment, such as the labor market. And in many instances, there is a refreshing or a revamping of the curriculum process. And this may be one of those. And so I'm going to pass it to Dr. Mitchell, who may have more of a detailed explanation.
Provost is correct. Based upon the advisory committee's recommendation, the program review data that the department looked at, and the work that the faculty in that area has done, they have decided that they would like to revamp the entire program so that the certificate really does speak to the competencies that our local employers say they expect the students to be able to demonstrate on day one. And I just saw a response from Stephen, and he said he can speak to the program review process if needed. But in a nutshell, that is why. Rather than tweak it, it really needs to be completely revamped so that it aligns with what industry says they need to see the students they hire from us be able to do.
Thank you.
Dr. Donansera, in speaking with Greg as well, I think another issue is the low numbers, and we trying to get it better aligned specifically with the machine tool program. That specific certificate doesn't align well with what we're doing in machine tool on the pathway.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Thank you, Dr. Dore. Stephen, did you want to say something? No, okay, we're good.
Ms. Garcia?
Thank you. I was just concerned because with advanced technology, it's kind of, it's one of the items that is needed. So if it's being revamped, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing it to our attention, and thank you for the clarification. So are there any other questions for the administration or staff? No? Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Now on to the regular action items. The first is 5.1, our contract amendment with the Gordley Group. Mr. Sylvan, could you read the recommendation?
So first, let me extend my apologies to Ms. Garcia and the other board members. I don't know what happened to the explanation. That was, at some point, there was an explanation contained in the 4.13 board item. I don't know what happened in the posting, but normally we do, as you saw in the other items, we do put information about activation and inactivation. So I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about causing any confusion with that. Okay. So first, I thought there was a request just to maybe do a quick
Oh, yes, let's
refresher
absolutely do
on
that.
kind of how the action item process works. So I'm happy to, let me do a quick overview of that, and then see if you have any questions, or maybe if I didn't cover the part we're thinking about, then let me know and let's address that. So normally for action items, there's a recommendation read. A member of the board will make a motion to approve it, and there'll be a second. Now, that doesn't have to happen. A member of the board could make a motion other than the recommendation. That would be okay too. But normally what we have is a motion and a second, and that opens up the discussion. At any point, could be right at the beginning of the discussion process or any point during the discussion process, any board member could make an amendment, right? I would like to amend the motion to add whatever or take something away. We follow somewhat of an informal process, and so typically what we do is when someone proposes an amendment, we often will ask the person who made the motion, would you consider that a friendly amendment, and agree that the motion should be amended that way. If they agree, we now have a new motion that includes that amendment. If they don't agree, then we need someone to second the amendment, and then the board would discuss and vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, the motion as amended is now the motion on the floor for discussion and vote by the board, and there could be other amendments. If the amendment does not get voted by a majority of the board, then the original motion as it was made remains the motion on the floor for further discussion and vote by the board. Does that? You could, I mean, a substitute motion essentially would be to strike out the whole thing and replace it with something else. So I mean, it's a form of amendment.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, so Mr. Sullivan, could you read the recommendation for the contract amendment to the Gordley Group?
Maybe I'll do a better job this time if I put on my reading glasses. The Chancellor recommends that the Governing Board authorize the Chancellor or designee to execute an amendment to the agreement with Gordley Group for the provision of marketing and advertising services. The amendment will increase the contract award amount for the remaining term of the 5-year contract from July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023. Total costs for this 2-year period are not expected to exceed $2 million, excluding any applicable tax, and total contract value for the full 5-year period is not expected to exceed $4.5 million.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation?
I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, Chancellor Lambert, do you want to give us an overview?
Yeah, so we're really excited about all the great work that's been going on at the college, but as a result of that, it also increases expenses and the need to market those new efforts. And so I'd like Lisa to come on. This will be her last time addressing the board to talk a little more detail about those efforts and why this additional support would be needed to help us market them. Lisa?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Chair Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, colleagues and guests, and it is my honor and privilege to be able to give you this report. I heard a quote just recently. I was reminded of this quote from Rufus Glasper, who's president and CEO of the League for Innovation, and he said, community colleges think we are in the community, students will come to us. But he says, if community colleges hope to bring students back next fall, they need to come up with the funds to market themselves to students. Well, thank you, Governing Board, for embracing this philosophy, because it is a large part due to your advocacy for marketing that we're having this conversation today. So when we entered the request for proposal process 3 years ago for a local advertising agency, we based it on the annual budget we had at the time, which was between either $400,000 and $500,000. But it was shortly after that you began to recognize the need for additional funding for marketing. And thank you to that support, we've been able to do a lot. So we were able to roll out our new Keep Striving brand and really spread it across the community and make it well known. It's been widely accepted and widely supported. We were able to develop a very robust campaign for Pima Online, which the numbers are just off the charts successful for that campaign. We've been able to expand our advertising to Hispanic, African American, and other specific audiences. In particularly, we've been able to expand our Spanish language advertising, which this year will include not only radio, but outdoor and specialty advertising. We owe Gordley a lot of credit for this particular effort. And we've also been able to add a number of digital components to our typical enrollment campaign, such as advertising on the very popular social media platform, TikTok. On top of your advocacy and the support provided by the college, we've had some very successful grant applications done by the college, and I'm thinking in particular of a few Workforce has had recently. And those come with marketing dollars attached to them. Also, we've had several individual programs who have identified marketing dollars in their operations budgets that we've been able to use to help them increase applications and enrollments to their program. Specifically this year, paralegal and law enforcement as two examples. And then we've been working with adult ed in partnership, sometimes with their funding and in partnership with marketing dollars to help boost their programs. What all that work has done is bumped us up against the $2.5 million spending limit of the current contract. What we're asking for is just a little bit more capacity for the next 2 years. So we're asking to expand that contract by $2 million, or effectively $1 million a year for the next 2 years of the contract. Now, we don't expect necessarily spending that much with Gordley. This year, we're going to spend about $700,000 with them. But it gives us the capacity, so as grant funding comes in or additional funding comes in, that we can manage this effectively without continuously coming to the board. Approving this tonight is going to let us continue all of the good work that I just mentioned uninterrupted. And I just want to say a quick thing about Gordley. Gordley has provided tremendous value to Pima Community College and our students. They've been with us for a while, so they know the college as well as we do. They certainly know our students, and they've really honed their act in helping us develop the right language, the right audiences, the right tools to reach them. And that's why we've been able to expand so much of what we've done. They also do some really wonderful finding value for us in, they do their own RFP process for the advertising tools that they use, so that we were getting the most we can for our advertising dollar. And they've also been really successful in bringing us unique opportunities. So just for example, this year we're going to be marketing with the Sugar Skulls, which we were going to do it last year, of course, until the pandemic, but we get to do it again this year, And this is a really important demographic. We share a demographic with the Sugar Skulls audience. Gordley, as I mentioned, has been responsible for helping us expand our Spanish language advertising. And they've also brought us special opportunities, like a recent one with El Imparcial, which allowed Dolores Duran-Cerda Provost to be interviewed for that publication. So we really feel like we have a lot of momentum going right now. We're excited about where we're going. Our enrollment numbers for this coming fall are looking really promising. Summer looks fantastic. And this is the work that we would like to continue with your approval. If I can answer any questions.
Are there questions from the board? Okay, I don't hear any. Okay, so we'll close the discussion and we'll have a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ms. Garcia, did we hear from you? Oh, you abstained. Okay, so we have, and Mr. Gonzalez, but you voted yes. Okay, so it's a 4 to 1.
Right, well, it's a 4-0 vote with
4
one
to 0
abstention.
vote with one abstention. Okay, thank you very much. The next item is our 5.2 contract with Train US Inc. For the Synestics Sphere antibacterial devices. Mr. Sylvan, could you read the recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor recommends the Governing Board authorize the Chancellor or designee to execute an agreement with Train US Incorporated for the purchase and installation of Synexus Sphere antimicrobial devices. Total costs for the agreement are not expected to exceed $1,189,310.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I would like discussion. What is the procedure, Jeff?
So Yeah, so we need to have a second, and then we can have a discussion, and then we could have an amendment to the motion.
Okay, second.
Okay, so a discussion, so we'll start with the presentation from Chancellor Lambert's team, and then discussion.
So as all of you know, one of the points that David Doré, president of campuses, made earlier was a lot of our employees are really anxious about coming back into our spaces. They want to make sure that they're coming into a clean, healthy environment. And so as a result of that, we have been looking at a solution that would help address the indoor air quality for our employees, our students, and the like. So as a result, we're recommending that the board approve this recommendation, but also recognize that the funding source for this would come out of the HERF money that we're receiving. So it's not coming out of existing college dollars. So with that, I'm going to have Bill Ward and David B. Follow up with additional questions or comments that you may have.
So Chancellor Lambert, are they going to give a presentation, or are we just, they'll just answer questions?
Dave, or Bill, did you have a specific presentation you wanted to roll out, or you just want to answer questions?
I could give information if you would like,
Okay.
Chancellor.
Okay.
Chair Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, students, colleagues, and guests. And so to give you a little history about, or a little knowledge about this piece of equipment or these pieces of equipment, is what you have in front of you is the college is looking at purchasing about 556 Synexus spare units to be installed in all PC classrooms district-wide. So it's not in every building, I mean, it's not in every area, it's mainly in the classrooms. The units are stated to create dry hydrogen peroxide from, and I don't need to get into the whole technical part of it, but the deal is that the idea to be utilizing these units, as the chancellor talked about or said earlier, is that the reduction of the coronavirus in the air after 60 minutes. A single sphere is stated to treat about 1,000 square feet. The units are approximately 19 inches in diameter, weigh about 14 pounds. The sphere is a portable unit that can be mounted on the wall and operate from a standard electric wall outlet. Units are advised to be left running 24/7, so it's something that we would have running all the time for maximum effectiveness. Also, too, as part of this project is the idea is to install, which is a portion, is to install indoor quality testing equipment in 6 areas and monitor for 2 weeks, then install a sphere in each area to operate and perform an indoor air quality measurement for comparability. The idea is this is emerging technology, so part of the proposal would be for us to run a pilot and test these units. And so that's kind of a cool thing. The measurements will be temperature, humidity, chemicals, because it does use hydrogen peroxide, and Pima would not be one of the only institutions that are testing these out at the time. Then the proposal also includes training for PC staff on installation and servicing the spares. With the 566 proposed units, electrical consumption is estimated at about, I figured I'd say that's about 4,000 in electricity with all of these little units within a month, but that's all over the college district, so that's not a whole lot of money. The lifespan is projected for about 10 years, so they'll last that long. Units require consumable changes every 3 months for operations and maintenance per approximately 20 minutes each, 740 1-hour total hours of operation. Says the cost and consumables, and that would mean like they have like a little filter and a little unit inside them that would have to be replaced. And so that's about $194. So annually, or let's see here, is what we have there. And then the university institutions utilizing the system is University of Oklahoma and Kansas State University. And that's what I have. That's all that I have related to what we have here with these pieces of equipment.
Okay, questions from the board? Ms. Ripley first, because you said you had a discussion, and then we'll go to Ms. Garcia.
Yes, so can you, if you said this, I apologize, but these would be installed in every classroom, or how many classrooms would they be installed in? And how many total classrooms do we have, if you have that data at the tip of your fingers? And of those, how many would get these?
Well, this is the majority of our classrooms. I don't have that data at the tip, but I can get that to you. But the idea would be to put them, like I said, all over the college district in the main rooms, but I can get you an updated amount as to how many classrooms. But I did miss something too. The consumables are estimated at $350 per unit. And so what that means is that we have to, we would have to replace those every so often. And so I didn't say that correctly earlier.
So $350 per unit per year, in addition to the purchase price of $1 million.
It could be approximately $194,600 annually total. And that's something that we will need to talk with the train company about related to these units, because there's some information related to how long they can operate without having the consumables changed or replaced. And so, but at the end of the day, I think that would be the top price of that, but I feel that we could probably knock that down if needed.
Ms. Garcia?
Okay, so so you're saying that it's going to cost $194,000 a year to maintain these units. Is that correct?
I do feel that at the first part, when we purchase the system, I'm pretty sure, then I'd have to fully look at the proposal, that I think it is covered in the first year. But that is a cost that we would need to prepare for as we move forward. And the reason why I brought up what I said is because on one thing, it looks like we may have to change them annually, but then we also found another study that basically states, and I think it relates to their technical data, that we may only have to change them every 2 years. And so that's something that if the board approves, that's something that we would need to verify with the company and train.
Okay, and then my next question is, who will do the replacement? I think you said PCC, or is it train?
Well, they're little tiny units, and so I would be under the impression that we would be the ones that would be changing the little filters or the pieces of the components that would have to be replaced. But also too, these units have a warranty on them, and so the way that I would look at it is that the first year or so would most likely they'd be a warranted product. But like I said before, if we did it annually, it would be in the $190,000 range.
And then my next one.
That would be in the second year.
And then also just Ms. Garcia, Dr. B had his hand raised, so I'm not sure if it was germane to your question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
and then we can come back.
Go ahead, Dr. B.
Just to, I think, support what Bill was saying is that the high end estimate would be the almost 200,000. The current thought is that it needs to be done every 2 years, which would cut that cost in half.
Agreed.
Okay, Ms. Garcia.
Okay, so the next question is, so this is virgin technology. I think I looked this up and I didn't see anything where it was approved by the CDC and ASHRAE. It isn't certified. And then my next question is, why didn't we consider some other units, some that are?
Well, I would say, this is emerging technology, but the inventor of this product has put it in a number of places, not just in universities. I think also too, they've looked at putting it in some hospitals and other things. There's a number of articles and blogs and things that are related to the product. There's other technology out there too. There's another product out there that's it's called a needlepoint bipolar ionization, and it's another emerging technology, and it's also gaining popularity. But remember, a lot of this stuff has come out since the COVID. Now, there are products that are out in industry that are approved by the CDC and ASHRAE and actually UL. What UL means is that they're certified by related to, they're not going to blow up because they plug in. And then the CDC, as we all know, relates to health. And so if it's going to clean or kill a bacteria or mold or something, that's what that approval would be for. And then also to ASHRAE relates to the air quality and things like that. And so there's really only one product out there right now, and that is the UV lighting. That has actually been in place for decades. And that's something that basically relates to installing these types of lights inside the air handling equipment itself. And that, and I would estimate that, that could be in the range, I would say the most expensive range when we look at our size of equipment that we have throughout the district. And this is just off the top of my head because I haven't estimated this. I'm just getting, and I've seen them before and have used them in other places, probably about $2,500 a unit. But that would not go in the classrooms, that would actually go in the air conditioning systems itself. But at the end of the day, this is new, emerging technology. A lot of cool things are coming out. I mean, this COVID situation has put a lot of things on the table, and this is something that was proposed to us, and we've taken a good hard look at it. And a lot of people, like right now, I will say that both ASHRAE and the CDC are monitoring it, but they're also monitoring other pieces of equipment that's out there too.
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez. Could you speak into the microphone though?
So currently it hasn't been certified, correct?
There's really only one product that's been certified, and that has to do, like what I said, with the UV lighting, but it's a total different type of product. It's something that you would literally have to install in the unit, in the air handling unit, or like take your house. It would be something that if it was at your home, you would install it in your air handler, the thing that makes the, that flows, makes the airflow. And then basically what they are is they're UV lights, and they run all the time. I don't have the cost for off the top of my head of what they cost to maintain and things like that. It's just based on, you can order equipment with that already in it if you want to. But that's really the only system out there at this time that if you're concerned about those types of certifications, that right now is really like one of the only systems that's out there that's kind of standardized and used all over. But remember, these are portable units. They can be mounted, they can be moved, and then there's and which is very simple. And they're not that, like I said, they're not very big. I don't have a picture to show you what it looks like, but they are kind of cool looking.
And through the facilities, have we done a complete assessment? If so, do we have a report?
What we've done, Board Member Gonzalez, is we've actually gone in and taken a look at it and looked at all the studies. And like I said before, it's emerging technology. And so what's happening is that people are, actually looking at these things and using them and actually studying them. And so what we see out there is a lot of people are saying some good things about it, but it is technology in a sense that is still being studied at this time. And so if you guys are, that's the thing, if you're looking for it to be certified right now, the only certification it has, but a number of other projects have it too, is just the UL rating, which is on any device that plugs into an outlet.
And then
Last question.
Yes.
So right now, in reference to this product, there's articles out there, but there's no actual researches being done at this point?
No, there's research. Actually, that's kind of what the pilot would be, is if the college was to utilize this product, then we would actually be part of that research. And so there is actually research that's out there. But like I said, it's considered emerging technology. And so basically when I say that, ASHRAE and CDC are acknowledging it, just like they're doing a bunch of other things. But they're like watching it. They're waiting for the information to come in or the studies to come in, and then eventually they would give their stamps of approval on it.
And Dr. Hay, yes.
Yeah, so it seems to me, and we've heard from the faculty leadership and the administrators that one of the key issues for our faculty and our students is doing everything possible to make sure the classrooms in this space that we have is safe and clean to return fully in the fall. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we possibly can to ensure and using the latest technologies. This is brand new technology. It was literally, it was invented probably a few years ago, but only marketed since COVID. And there is no other technology like it out there. And the fact that it's portable, and you don't have to plug it into your air handler, you can move it from room to room, that's a big deal, in my opinion. And if we can make this statement as a board that we are totally behind wanting to make sure we're doing everything possible to keep our classrooms clean and keep our spaces clean, I think it's a worthwhile investment that the students hopefully will respond to and come back in full force in the fall. So I think it's a good investment. I like the idea that it's portable. There's a lot of studies published, scientific literature published on the effectiveness of these machines. Hospitals use them all the time in their emergency rooms and in their surgery rooms. You know, Bill mentioned Oklahoma bought 3,000 of these things. K-State did as well. Of course, it was invented in Kansas. That's why they bought them. But I think it's a good investment, and I think it gives a good message to our students and our faculty that we care about their health and we're doing everything possible to reassure that the rooms and the spaces are safe.
I would like to, if I could, Board Member Hay, kind of piggyback onto what you just said. The other thing too is to think about it, like Board Member Hay said, is that the college could use remember we went out, we did that cleaning. Nobody knew exactly how the cleaning was going to work or if it was going to be beneficial, but the college did it anyways. And then with this type of system, you could actually use these types of systems in partnership with the system, with the other system. And so it's a multi-pronged approach about, and I totally agree that if we want people to feel safe and comfortable, so things like this, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes I'm not saying that they don't work or they're not great. It's just when perception a lot of times really makes feel better about coming to an institution. I mean, one thing I would say is we've changed our whole cycling with filtration. One of the things we do, we used to change our filters every 3 to 4 months. Now we don't do that anymore. It's every 1 to 2, depending on use, but no more than 2. And so the college is doing a lot of things, but any tool that we can get to help people feel more comfortable, and not just people coming here, but our staff too. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and Chair Klinko, if I may, again, as the president of the campus.
Dr. Doré, before you, it looks like David B. has had his hand up, and then Board Member Ripley is waiting to speak, and then let's hear from you, Dr. Doré. Mr. B.
I just wanted to follow up on a Hayne question. The question was about how many units there were. So there were enough units to cover all of the classrooms and have some extra left over, including the learning centers. And some of the labs that are bigger might require more than 1 unit. So that's how it was sized up. So it really is focusing on the classrooms and really having a localized way to provide, really good sanitization on a local level in the classroom.
Okay, thank you very much, Board Member Ripley, and then Dr. Doré, and then Ms. Garcia.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the clarifications. Conceptually, I totally agree, and I think the question was more, we just wanted to make sure we chose the right company. And I have, not this company, but I have one in my house, so I know the value, but it goes beyond just micro substances in the air, but it's also, dust and pollen, and that pollen in this area. So I would also, when we decide where and when the installation would happen, that we take care of our staff and the common areas as well, if at all possible, because it is it's not just health, but also quality of life and quality of work day to day for the people that work here every day. Thanks.
Dr. Doré?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll leave the right system to the experts, but I just really want to emphasize, as the president of campuses, it's my highest priority that our students and our faculty and our staff and all of our employees feel safe. And so I really encourage the board to adopt a solution, because I have been communicating to our employees and to our students that we are doing everything we can to make sure that their air quality is clean and safe.
Ms. Garcia?
Okay, I guess, I'm concerned, and I would want to, and I appreciate what you guys are giving us. But on the other hand, I would like to know, in addition, what would it cost to do the better system, even though it's more expensive? But there's the thing that goes into the.
So Board Member
the
Garcia, I would argue that there isn't a better system. Each of these systems have their pros.
Well, one that's certified.
And even the certified one has its pros and it has its cons. Remember how it's mounted? It's only attacking the virus and all those other things at the point of entry. Once it comes into the room, it's no longer effective because it's at the point of entry where it's mounted. And so lots of things can still get into the room that UV is not going to help you with. And so you have to keep that in mind. That's why there's not one single solution. And I think that's what Bill was saying, right? It's like you put a multi-layered approach, and UV may be one of the things we might want to do downstream, but this one is right in the room itself. And I think to Board Member Ripley's point, and she, and I think some of us have used similar things in our houses. So I just want us not to lose sight of that, right? There's no silver bullet here. It's multi-prong, and I think this one is going to be very visible. It's closer to us in terms of that atmosphere, and that's why I support it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, well then let's have a vote since we have a motion on the floor. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain. Okay, so it's 4-0 with Mr. Gonzalez abstaining. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is 5.3, the Downtown Campus Hotel Motel Development. Mr. Sylvan, could you read the recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor recommends the Governing Board authorize the Chancellor or his designee to proceed with the planning, design, and construction for the adaptive repurposing and development of the Downtown Campus Hotel Motel properties.
Okay, I will go ahead and make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Chancellor Lambert, do you want to provide
Yes.
a context and overview?
So, we are very excited that the board has supported the acquisition of these 3 hotel properties. And we've, been looking at these properties and trying to envision how we would best use them. And we really believe we have a strong use case for adaptive reuse of these properties. And so we'd like to bring on an architect to go in and design someone who has experience in this area to really allow us to take it and bring it to life for our students and our staff and community, et cetera. So that's why we support this. I also, if you would like to hear a presentation, we'd be glad to do that. So I have our provost who, and I see David's right there. They have put together what the use case would be for these properties. So maybe I'd start there first, and then we can talk about the financial side of this to bring it to life. Go ahead.
Sounds good. So we're going to give, I'm going to give a little context, especially for Board Member Ripley. I want to give you a little bit of history about the campus, and then Dolores will talk specifics about the hotel, and Bill will talk about the facilities. So Dolores, you want to go to the next slide? Next one, there you go. So Board Member Ripley and others, the other board members probably know this, but Tucson was one of 4 cities that participated in the Rose Center for Public Leadership and Land Use a few years back. And that focused on revitalization of that Oracle area. And that's 2.6-mile district north of downtown that encompasses not just the downtown campus, but 2 school districts. And what came out of that really was that we were the anchor institution in this area, and the city is very committed to urban redevelopment in a much more, I think, conscientious and much more sustainable approach. And so as a result of that, we have been very involved as partners in the Thrive in the 05 area. In fact, we've partnered with the City of Tucson Economic Development. We have a joint position with Pima Community College and the Economic Development area. We're very engaged in really revitalizing this area. And it's an exciting hub because as the downtown sector grows, the city anticipates tremendous growth up in this area, in this corridor as well. And so in summary, Thrive in the 05, it really works to align what we're doing with the downtown campus making this a community hub for really transformational efforts, a gateway to Tucson's vibrant downtown. It's going to be the primary workforce development area of the city as well. And so, just an overview of downtown. About 120,000 people live within 3 miles of the downtown campus. And our downtown campus and our Desert Vista campus are located to serve our most diverse populations in the county. And downtown is also the campus best served by transit routes. And as part of the education and facilities master plan, the recommendation was to strengthen downtown as the key anchor for the delivery of student and academic support services. And so there's a number of projects that are now underway. We're doing the ribbon cutting Tuesday for the Automotive Technology Innovation Center. The Advanced Manufacturing Center is scheduled to be complete in 2022. Our adult basic education main offices and intake are housed at downtown. We currently have our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion office and our Immigrant and Refugee Center are housed at the downtown campus. And then future plans are for our Workforce Development Division to be relocated to downtown campus, and that would include our Small Business Development Center, an expansion of our entrepreneurial programs at the downtown campus, and also integrating IT coursework into all of our programs in response to Industry 4.0. And so, I think now I'm going to really pass it on to Dolores. These are kind of the big picture things that are going on. And now Dr. Duran-Cerda will talk about some of the specifics of what these properties would be used for.
Thank you, Dr. Dure. Can everybody hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So what you see on the screen now is our recommended option, which is the renovation of the 3 properties, and that includes the Tucson Inn, the Copper Cactus Inn, and also the Frontier Hotel. So as Dr. Dure said, at the downtown campus, with the EMP, the Education Master Plan, Facilities Master Plan, we have, the recommendation is to have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Center there and expanded, including the Immigrant Refugee Student Resource Center. The Teaching and Learning Center is recommended that it be moved to the downtown campus as well, and then expand social services such as food pantry, clothes closet, and wraparound services. So for these different options, I'd like to share with you the programming options that are in line with the downtown campus's community role as outlined in the Education and Facilities Master Plan. It's also in line with the campus role as outlined in both in the document, and also it's in line with the campus role as a community hub, as Dr. Dore mentioned, as demonstrated by the Thrive in the 05 partnership. So specifically, the Tucson Inn, we're hoping that the diner can be used and supported by the culinary and hospitality program, kind of with the 50s theme that goes along with the sign and the architecture there. For the Copper Cactus, we were thinking about having the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Center there, and that includes the Immigrant and Refugee Student Resource Center, as well as the Faculty Affairs and Development, which includes the Teaching and Learning Center, Faculty Qualifications, and the Faculty Resource Center headquarters. For the third property, the Frontier Motel, we are thinking of establishing the innovation hub for the arts. And because of the downtown campus that has the Applied Technology Center of Excellence, we were wanting to be creative and innovative of using that synergy with the liberal arts, having students work on capstones that combine both. We talked about welding and how you could make jewelry, you could make all kinds of creative things. So having those kinds of synergies that haven't really been thought of before and making students combine their talents and innovation. And then another potential possibility is P-TECH, having a center of excellence for early college. So those are the programming ideas that we've been focusing on and have talked to the deans and the respective executive directors over these particular programs. So maybe I should stop here for any questions before I pass it on to Vice Chancellor Bill Ward who'll give the potential costs and renderings and timelines.
Dr.
Yes.
Duran, can I mention one other thing I forgot to mention, and that is we're in conversations with the county about co-locating the Pima County One Stop at the downtown campus as well. And since you have the Tucson Inn sign, we recently received a grant from the city of Tucson to restore the Tucson Inn sign, so that will be back to its glory, hopefully here within the next year.
Dr. Hay.
I think this is very exciting, and it for multiple reasons, Dolores and David. I think you've done a great job. I'm curious, though, is there an opportunity for leasing retail space to vendors who want to sell, whether it's something to eat or books or whatever? Is that an opportunity as well?
Well, with the diner, I mean, that would be open to the public, especially with the new buildings that have been constructed, the Center of Excellence and the business and industry and all of that hub. I think that would be a great potential. With the Dean of Arts, when we talked about the Innovation Hub, he also mentioned a marketplace for faculty and students to sell their artwork. So that is a possibility, as well as community agencies. We are looking into, and Dr. Duray can elaborate on that, on a position that's kind of like a social worker liaison to community agencies, so they could potentially have offices there as well. Dr. Duray, I don't know if you'd like to elaborate.
Hey, and I'd be happy to share this with the board. The City of Tucson Economic Development Office has a number of renderings in terms of Drachman, and I think particularly Drachman, there is tremendous commercial potential for Drachman, and so I think absolutely, I think having some leasing would certainly be on the table.
Thank you.
Ms. Garcia.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to just state that in my view, we're an educational institution. We're not supposed to be into redevelopment. And I also, Dolores, Provost, I understand, that some of the things that you're trying to co-locate in this area are already in existence in other buildings. Right now, the college capacity is underutilized. So I had prepared my little statement earlier, so I just want to read this. I was elected to the board to represent this community and my district. My constituents expect me to represent them and use my best judgment when making important decisions, like spending their tax dollars on renovation of these properties. Because this is a large expenditure of public funds, I feel obligated to examine all the facts involved. I have made numerous requests to the chair, to the chancellor, and the board, who have heard my request to obtain more information concerning this project, but my requests have been ignored. I also requested a study session on this project. This request was also ignored. I feel that I've been totally disrespected, and I believe I know the reason for this. I cannot vote to approve this project until all my requests have been made. I would also request that my fellow board members do the same. This project involves a considerable amount of money, and we are only given 10 minutes to discuss this project. Presently, we have excess capacity. Mr. Ward, you can tell us exactly how much we have. And it does not make sense to me to be in the business of renovating properties that have little educational value. I do support historical preservation as important for our community. But the college should not be using our revenues to fund these projects. For this reason, I will not approve this project.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Garcia. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Ms. Ripley?
Yes, I think that based on some of the comments, Board Member Garcia's comments, I feel that perhaps the presentation that I received wasn't received by everyone. When I first got here, I had the pleasure of meeting with a lot of the vice chancellors and had a presentation on the different options for the hotels, but not sure what happened in between and how we decided on these options. I mean, one of the options had some parking spaces and a parking garage that would have an ROI, but I sort of feel like there needs to be a little bit more discussion so that we can all come to an agreement on what to do with these already purchased properties.
So I would just note that we have had numerous discussions over the last 2 years since we purchased them. They've been included in the master planning work. We've had multiple discussions at study sessions. We've taken tours of the property.
You had a tour of the
Ms.
property.
Ms. Garcia, please, point of order. You know, we have a process, and we heard your presentation. I'd like to speak for a moment. You know, these buildings are, yes, they're historic. They are on they're on the northern edge of our campus. What's being presented this evening is an opportunity to take programs that need investment, that need to be boosted up. I mean, I look at the list of things that are on that slide, and those are all programs that, as a board, we have said over and over again we're committed to. I mean, we're committed to a refugee center. We're committed to all of the different things that are on that slide. And what I think we're seeing is the blending of multiple community priorities. That's what I'm hearing from David Doré, our Vice Chancellor. Dr. DeRay, what?
President of campuses.
President of campuses, sorry. President of campuses. But it's how do you blend all of these things together? How do we blend community initiatives with our educational services to benefit our students? And I think this is a really thoughtful plan that does those things, and we have had multiple conversations and multiple discussions and multiple presentations over the last 1.5 to 2 years in a host of different ways.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, Chancellor Lambert and then Ms.
say-
Garcia.
So if you keep in mind, the downtown campus, the Roosevelt Building, well, that was a adaptive reuse. The old post office, which is our library, was adaptive reuse. So the college has had a history of taking facilities, rehabbing them, and repurposing them for the benefit of our community. That would be the same thing here. And as Chair Klinko is pointing out, let me just use DEI as an example. They're in a little classroom, they're in a little office. They need to have much more space, more breathing room to meet the growing needs of our students and our community. And so this gives us the opportunity to do that. Now, you can't look at things as what they are right in front of us at the moment. We have to look at where things are going into the future. And so that new automotive center is an example of that, the new advanced manufacturing centers. We're going through a renaissance right now at Pima Community College. I've had people say that to me. And I think we're going to see people coming back to the college because they're going to see that we have so much opportunity. Our programs are modernized. We're now into the 21st century. We're leading in some of these areas. So we're going to need more space, not less space as we go into the future. So let's not just look at things right in front of us, but let's think about that future and where we're going. And it's exciting for this community.
Ms. Garcia?
Okay, so Chancellor Lambert, we were not given a presentation on the different options. We may have had tours, we have had discussions, I will agree with that. But I've never heard about a parking lot. We did a tour, and that was it. It was never explained to us, okay, so for example, the diner that wants to be renovated as is. And when we had the tour, you were talking about keeping the buildings as is. That is not good utilization of land, in my view. That's my view, okay? So I'm okay with, that we need an expansion, and I'm okay with centralizing certain educational opportunities and cultural events, but you have to show us exactly what you're going to do, not approve these buildings as is. I can't do that.
Dr. Hay?
Board Member Ripley, to your point, we did receive the same presentation. We received it in the documents that were sent to us as well as study sessions. So everybody received the same information, whether or not it was read and appreciated. Nothing's been held back. But I can't see a single item on this list that Dolores went through that's not deeply embedded in what we believe in this college. Whether it's the culinary arts has always been an innovative idea. I think the idea about the Diversity Inclusion Center there and transborder studies and putting a faculty center for excellence there, I think that's a fabulous idea. And I imagine if we had a faculty member in this room right now, they would agree that they need a place for faculty excellence and growth. We own these properties, and Kat, I'd be fine with doing an additional study time, if you really want to have a clear presentation on what they want to put in there and how they want to debate who's going to go where, that's fine. But to say we haven't had the information is false. Whether you read it or not is one thing, but we have had all the information. We've had 2 study sessions. We've been talking about this. It has been a master plan for 2 years. So somebody hasn't read the materials, but I think this is exactly what we should be doing in this space. And I'm certainly willing to get further information before we agree to move forward with this.
Thank you, Dr. Hay. I really think that we do need to look at this a little bit deeper so that everybody on this board is satisfied with the decision. I think that this year we are, and as a new board member, I feel it's my responsibility to the taxpayers that we look at this very large budget that we're going to look at soon. And within the context of that budget, look at where the hotel property renovation lies, where all of the centers of excellence, where they sit, and look at the big picture, because there's a lot of money, which is wonderful. We're getting all of this federal funding, which will go away next year. But I think that I would feel more comfortable as a board member if we looked at this in the context of the greater budget and our strategy, to your point, Chancellor, a bigger picture strategy of where we want this school to go and what it's going to look like in the next not just year, but 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and also in the context of where we are moving socially in not just Arizona, but nationally and internationally. So I would like to see one very serious discussion, whether it's a study session, but where we all sit down civilly and see the presentations from all of the people involved, facilities, Dr. Dore, everybody that had a piece of this, finance, Dr. B, and really lay it all out in the context of the budget, which I think we also need to discuss a little bit more deeply. Thank you.
Dr. Hay.
And I fully support that, Kat. And I also will suggest, and I want to say this publicly, that when the board has study sessions on important topics, all board members need to show up. And they can't not show up and say, I never heard about it, because we have had study sessions and people don't show up. So if we're going to actually get serious about this and sit down and talk about it, then you need to show up. No, you've missed it.
Mr. Gonzalez.
I just want to say that the plans look good in reference to what Ms. Cerda mentioned, all those programs, and I will concur that those programs are needed. But more important, the synergy that she brought forth, I think it's great. Even with the, as Mr. Lambert mentioned, it's a renaissance. It's a new beginning. But one of the operative words that Mr. Lambert mentioned, we're trying to get modernized as well too. I know that we have discussions before, and one of the discussions and one of my concerns that I had is the cost. I know we're probably going to see it, but I think it's something that I would like to see. What is the cost for this renovation will amount to versus, or in comparison, to a new building. In the past, you mentioned that we have to replace. Well, I was on the tour, and it's going to take a lot of work in reference to bringing it up to the standards with the new technology and all that. I think it's going to be a lot of money. As I mentioned, I would like to see as I mentioned before, I would like to see what is the cost in reference to the renovation, but more important, is it cheaper? Is it more productive? Is it better and more modernized in reference to doing a design build, a new facility? PCC should not be in the area of renovation. We're there to provide the services, and if we want to provide the best and excellent services, I would like to see a design build. new buildings where we can really provide those programs as needed. But as we heard before, the space capacity, we have a lot, and we're not capitalizing that. We said it briefly a while ago, reference to one of the campuses. But I think that the space, in reference to what we have, that's something that we need to look at. But if we're going to be, like I mentioned, I would like to see the actual and true costs in reference to the renovation, but more important, what would it be? Is it more cost effective to do a new building, a design build in reference to the programs? I don't know. And I think that's the other area that we're going to be looking at. But as I mentioned before, with Ms. and all of us, we all have to look and provide the best for the community, for the students, not only in reference to the academics, but also we are responsible for the cost. We have that fiduciary duty to look at all perspective, all areas. What is it? What is the true cost? Thank you.
Okay. So Chancellor Lambert, what I'll do is I'll withdraw my motion and let's get this scheduled for a study session in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the capital budget plan for fiscal year 2022. We have 10 minutes. Is
Good
there
evening again. Sure.
Wait, we're gonna do. So do we need a?
We need a presentation.
Yes. So, do we approve?
Yeah, so if we follow our regular process, I'm going to read the recommendation.
Okay, terrific.
And then we can have a motion.
Great.
Dr. B will
Mr.
walk
Sullivan,
you through the
if you
capital
could
budget.
read the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor recommends the governing board approve $47.9 million in capital projects and estimated life cycle needs for fiscal year 2022.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion, Chancellor Lambert?
So I'm going to ask Dave to just do a brief presentation on the big picture of this capital proposal.
Good evening, Chair Klinko, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, colleagues and guests. Again, and sorry for interrupting there and going out of order. So in your board packet is the recommended list of capital projects to be folded into the upcoming fiscal year 22 budget. As has been indicated, it is a large increase over a typical year or the more recent years, which have been actually lower than normal in terms of the capital projects. That's principally because of adding the furnishings and equipment for the Centers of Excellence projects that are coming online, adding in a number of pieces of high-tech equipment for additional Centers of Excellence like arts and things like that don't have new buildings but do have these greater technology needs. And then information technology and other life cycle needs. Life cycle needs include deferred maintenance and other planned and normal expenses that happen during the year. It included is also the energy management project that we've talked about with the board. And listed in the board packet are the categories of the projects as recommended by the location, the organization division that would be the recipient of the equipment project, and then also the type of project that we're talking about. And then the specific projects are listed out there. This comes from a process where it's sort of a bottom-up process where each year we open up a database for people to submit their high priority or their priority capital needs. That gets evaluated by administrators and then approved by the executive administrators in the unit. It gets reviewed then by facilities, information technology, and the planning group to make sure it's consistent with that the cost estimates are consistent with what the true needs are going to be, and that it's consistent with the college's priorities. And then that list is compiled. The highest priority items were the ones that are in front of you. And the funding sources are a combination of, again, the availability of federal funds to support some of our needs, as well as using fund balance and transfer revenues for our life cycle funds. We have that budgeted typically to the tune of about $10 million. This I think addresses and really puts us in a good position related to the conversation that we just had about really taking the college forward with the academic technology needs and capabilities. This is a robust capital plan, and it meets a lot of needs. On top of that, the other thing that's worth, and I'll say this in terms of the budget presentation in a few minutes, is this is a capacity document. So this sets the maximum amount that can be spent on any of these projects. We are also this year going to implement a little bit different capital project process, and we will be coming back on a regular basis, both to the Finance Audit Committee, and we'll give regular reports back to the board on how the spending is actually happening related to these capital projects. That said, what I mean by that is that approving it tonight gives us the capacity to do the projects. It doesn't mean that we will spend all of the money in this list in this next year. And with that, I'll ask if the board has any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. B? Yes, Dr. Hay.
So in the budget for the new aviation building, did we already plan on this? This is like $3 or $4 million, $3.5 million. Was that in the budget for the building and all that?
Yeah, in some of the cases, the answer is totally yes. In some of the cases, it's a little different. So with the aviation project, recall that when we submitted the initial request to the state, we had requested something that was in excess of $20 million. And then they funded us to the tune of $15 million. So the additional needs are essentially supported by the college. Similar, a number of these projects are funded or were planned to be, the equipment was included with revenue bonds projects or was anticipated to be used from the college's reserves.
Ms. Garcia?
You know, I would like to see, I would like to have a study session on every line item that you have here.
I don't want a study session on every line item. I think the Finance and Audit Committee can do that, but I don't want to be involved in that.
Well, the thing is that on some of this stuff that he's presenting, I mean, they're going to be incapable of trying to get all this stuff accomplished within 1 year.
I'd love for the Finance and Audit Committee, I'm sorry.
So just, I mean, let's, okay. Okay, I've heard your request. Tonight we're voting on this. We need to move it forward so it can be folded into the budget. We can vote it down. Ms. Ripley?
Hi, yes, so just, hi. A point of clarification, if you will.
Yes.
We had a discussion earlier. I was unaware that we were actually going to vote to approve this budget, that this was just a public presentation.
So this is the capital budget plan. This is not the actual budget of the institution. So these are just capital improvements, correct, Dr. B? This is a line item list of things that people have forwarded. This is just one small component of the budget. It is not the budget. This is just priorities that different entities in the college have brought forward and moved through a process that Dr. B's office runs, and then these are what get adopted as part of those capital. But this is not the budget of the college. The budget of the college, what we're voting on tonight is to whether we should publish it, and that provides a cap on how much we would spend.
Okay, so some of these line items can be adjusted or changed or eliminated, or we can add things as long as it stays at the cap?
Dr. B, do you want to?
Yes, so, and that's what I'm saying, it's a capacity document, and the budget later is the more critical version of that, where all of these projects are folded into that budget. So this is a subset of that budget. And yes, so what we're saying is this is the absolute max that could be spent by the college. That's important because it goes out to our taxpayers to approve. It doesn't impact the taxpayers because we're not increasing the tax levy and we're not increasing tuition. So this is just so that they're aware of how the college is spending money. And Board Member Ripley, to answer your question more specifically, if a project isn't completed within the year, the cost would be less than this. If it turns out that it's a project that we decide not to do as we go through this, as I mentioned, that I'm planning to have a routine and regular updates with the Finance Audit Committee, and we'll provide that information to the board as well, that if a project is identified that it doesn't need to happen, which does happen, this happens every year, that some projects don't happen, some, a project, it turns out a piece of equipment isn't needed, or there's another way to solve that problem. That money doesn't get spent, it gets folded into fund balance, and then we're able to use that for capital needs in a future year. So that's normal. And so what we're looking to do is get the top side cap set by this budget, and then it would go down from there. What you can't do is go up from here.
Okay, great. So in essence, it's sort of a living document in that it can be tweaked. Okay, and with that said, with respect for my more savvy financial colleagues, I would like perhaps a one-on-one with you, Dr. B, to go over some of the line items, because apologies, I was unaware we were actually voting to approve this. So I would like a one-on-one just to go over the line items, if that's okay.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes,
I might, just to
Mr.
clarify
Sullivan.
one other thing, and Dr. B can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the reasons we think about this as a capacity document is any particular project on this list that's more than $250,000, which would exceed the chancellor's delegated authority, right? If we're going to buy equipment or some kind of goods or services for a project that would exceed that amount, any contract in excess of that amount is going to come to the board for approval. So approving this capacity document does not mean the board has approved that we're going to do everything on this list. It just sets the outer limit of the capital budget. And then, like I said, any specific project that exceeds the $250,000 delegated authority will be presented to the board for approval.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But these are, I mean, this is the scope of the capital projects.
These are this is the intended plan. And then anything, as Jeff mentioned, anything that's above the board threshold will come back to the board for approval of the specific contract. Things that are under that and that are deemed to be continued high priority, we need to do them. We will purchase those according to the college's procurement policies.
But if there were questions on specific items on this list, now is the time to talk about them. Well, I mean, ultimately, I mean, right, this is the framework that we're going to approve, which is the capital budget, right? This is the capital improvements that are being proposed for the institution. So, ultimately, like what we move forward, it's the outer limit, but these are the projects that will progress. So if there are concerns about specific projects or a specific element, now would be the time to bring it up.
So,
Ms. Garcia?
Okay, so the advanced technology, all that stuff that was presented to us, okay, when is that facility going to be finished? It's not going to be this year, but it's on our budget.
Chancellor Lambert?
Well, this facility is, as you know, we've already broken ground on it. So our plan is to have it done as we move into hopefully sometime next year around this time period. So potentially we could have it done this upcoming fiscal year. But remember, we also have to start ordering certain things. Even though the building may not be finished, we may start ordering certain equipment and tools that will go into the facility, because we know it should be done right around this time frame next year.
It's also important, I think, to recognize that we don't purchase equipment just to have it sit around. That if the facility, the timing of these projects is critical. If it's related to a new facility, the timing of the equipment coming in at the same time as the building is ready for the equipment to be used is the plan. That's the goal. That's what we would try to do.
Okay, so then.
And there's no, by the way, the other thing to say is there's not a downside that if we approve a capital project in this year, in fiscal year 22, and it turns out that it's purchased in August of 22, so fiscal year 23, that would just be a carry forward project. The funds would stay in the capital fund, and then we would carry over that funds to the next year, and you would see it in next year's budget proposal as we were just shifting the money from one year to the other. The capital fund can cross over years, in other words. It doesn't have to be spent in this coming fiscal year.
Yes, Ms. Ripley.
Okay, two more questions that are different. One is, I'd love to have a one-on-one with you for all these line items. I don't want to waste everyone's time, but can you, just for everybody's awareness, what is contingent projects again? At $2 million?
That's a great question. That's the best question. So that is essentially a line item that is to handle some unforeseen or unexpected projects. So we like to have some contingent money available, and then it would have the capacity to do that. In this particular case, we have a couple of projects. There are a couple of projects that are specific that we want to review a little bit more thoroughly before we approve the capital project. And then there's a little bit of cushion in case there's some need that comes up during the year. Emergency needs happen for capital equipment. A piece of HVAC equipment goes down and it's above the threshold that is in the normal life cycle fund, or refrigerator equipment, things like that, or a piece of academic training equipment can go down, and we want to be able to buy it right away, so we have a contingent line for that.
Okay, and would the board be notified of the expenditure of that $2 million?
Yeah.
Before it
Again,
happens?
so what we're planning to do is have a regular, so there are two things. Is to have a regular update of how we're using the funds throughout the year. And then secondarily, if the dollar amount was above the board threshold, yes. So you would be informed beforehand if it's above the board threshold. You would be informed after the fact if it was below the board threshold. But you'll be informed.
Great. And my second question is, I'm assuming that the hotel renovation does not come under capital projects?
It isn't at this point.
It is not?
It is not. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was just looking for that line in.
It isn't. Yeah, it is not in this list.
Thank you.
Ms. Garcia?
And the energy management pro plan, is that part of it? That is part of it, right?
So it's included in the list, but as was discussed earlier, that project is going to go back to the board for approval before it goes forward. So again, it's the same situation, and depending on the cost mechanisms and how we finance it, the cost will change a little bit also with what's in this budget. So this budget is set up for what the proposed amount is to be pay as you go, to reference the earlier conversation. So in other words, the board would be approving that project before it actually goes forward and is approved to go. So nothing's going to happen with that until it goes back to the board.
Mr. Gonzalez, did you have your hand raised? Oh, no, okay. Okay, are there any other questions? Ms. Ripley? No, okay. Okay. So hearing no more questions, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Ms. Garcia? You abstain. Okay, the motion passes 3-1 with Mr. Gonzalez voting no and Ms. Garcia abstaining. The next item on our agenda is the proposed property tax levy for fiscal year 2022. Mr. Sullivan, could you read the recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor recommends the governing board remain levy neutral for fiscal year 2022 property taxes.
Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation? Is there a second? Mr. Lambert, do you want to give us just a very brief overview?
Well, in consideration of the conditions that our community has faced last year and this year, it's been our recommendation not to ask for a levy increase. And so we'd like to continue with that going into the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the item? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Hearing none, this motion passes unanimously. Next item is 5.6, the publication of fiscal year 2022 proposed budget in the presentation for July 2021 public hearing and special board meeting to adopt the budget and set a property tax rate and levies. Mr. Sullivan, will you read the recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor recommends the governing board approve publication in accordance with statutory requirements of the fiscal year 2022 budget in the Arizona Daily Star on May 24, 2021 and May 31, 2021, and conduct a public hearing and a special board meeting on June 9, 2021 for the purpose of adopting the budget and setting property tax rates and levies.
Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Lambert,
So
Chancellor Lambert.
as you notice in the document presented to you all, that we've outlined the key components of this budget. There will be no tuition increase, no levy increase. It does reflect some other proposed revenues, as well as how that will break down in terms of all funds, general funds, and then the expenditures as outlined.
And Dr. B has a presentation?
Do you want to do a presentation on this, Dave?
Yeah, well, I'll defer to the board's preference, but we have a presentation.
Let's have it,
ready to
Dr.
go.
B.
Okay. Good evening again, and this is a follow-up of the last item, the capital budget. So as you know, the budget comes together through a series of actions that happen during the spring and conversations that happen during the spring, and culminate in the presentation tonight, where we put it all together into an all-funds budget package, and run it by for approval from the board so that we can take it to the taxpayers in order to do a public hearing in June and formally adopt it in June. So tonight, what it is really about is approving the overall capacity of the budget so that we can take it out for taxpayer review. We will be having a study session on Friday to talk a little bit more detail about the budget, particularly with some of the items within it, compensation being, I think, one of the primary ones to have a little bit more detailed conversation with the board. But what I'm going to talk to you about is what we've built into the budget in terms of capacity and our ability to handle some of the priorities that we've been talking about with the board. So with that said, and Chancellor Lambert mentioned this, I think, really well a few minutes ago. As I said, it establishes the maximum spending capacity. It doesn't require, you're not required to spend up to that level. We spend under our budget every year, but it does set a maximum that you can't go over. And during the year, reductions happen and slight changes happen, and that's normal and fine. In this particular case, it reflects increased spending capacity due to the passage of 481. So we don't have the same expenditure limitation constraints that we had been operating under prior to that. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the increased flow of federal funds, and then there are potentially other funds. We put in a request for state funds also to help us with some of the capital requests that we have and some of our other infrastructure requests that come in. So this budget is really built to be able to handle if those funds come in, we will be able to spend it on the college's priorities as identified with the board through the series of conversations that we've been having. As always, we try to prioritize employee compensation. That is the comprehensive version or definition of compensation, salary increases, salary and wage increases, and then also benefits in this particular year. In the budget right now, we have built in an increase to the salary scales of 2% plus $1,000 for regular employees. So it's 2% plus $1,000. For what that means for employees is that the range of increases would be around 2.5% to over 5%. So depending on what the salary level is, that $1,000 flat rate, it has a greater proportional impact to the lower income employees. We've also built into the budget increasing a handful of employees who are a little bit under $15 an hour to raise them up. There aren't very many of them. They're the two lowest steps at the lowest grade classification that we have. So we have that included in here as well. And then we just talked about the capital outlay as identified to really equip up our centers of excellence and to deal with a lot of infrastructure needs that we have the opportunity to deal with now. As Chancellor Lambert mentioned, this budget does not include any increase in tuition and fees. It also continues to provide the student success support courses at no cost, no tuition cost. It is a levy neutral budget, which means that we're not increasing the tax rate, which you just approved. So that is good news to the taxpayers. and the tax rate will be going down actually pretty significantly. We do get growth at new properties, so we get an additional $1.35 million from new properties that have been added to the tax rolls. And then, as has been mentioned a number of times, the federal funds coming from the HERF 1, 2, and 3, the CARES Act, the CARISA Act, and then the more recent ARPA, those all are providing significant money to the college. We just found out this week that the third HERF is going to result in about a little more than $19 million of direct student aid support. And it also has $18.8 million of institutional support. So we have additional funds coming in beyond what we've already received through the first two HERF acts. As I mentioned, salaries and wages, the college, on top of the salary recommendation that we've put in, or what we folded into the budget that we'll talk a little bit more about on Friday, we've also, the increased costs for medical and for improving and enhancing the short-term disability program and funding up the public safety retirement system are folded into the budget. So those are all college absorbed benefit costs. We've talked already about the capital and IT infrastructure commitments. And then what we do is, through a series of these priorities, what we've mentioned to the public in the Prop 481, here are the things that we're looking to do, the chancellor's goals, and then the strategic plan goals. These are the priorities for the institution. And so there are a few things that we've done that are consistent with 481, adding in more student success, not only making the student success courses free of tuition, but adding in a couple of student success advisors and a student success faculty member, someone who teaches STU classes. Okay, so this summarizes the tax situation. I'm not going to belabor the point because I think I made it already. The fact that we're levy neutral makes the budget process quite a bit easier. If you increase the tax rate, you have to go through a truth in taxation process. We won't have to do that this year. Again, it means that the tax rate is going to go down because the assessed valuations in the county have gone up, and we're not increasing the tax rate, so the tax rate will go down. And then the change year over year is from the growth in new property. Here's a summary historically of how the revenues have come in over time by type. And you can see that the last few years, we've really ramped up the use of reserves for capital purposes. That's because we issued the revenue bonds. We've been accumulating college reserves and really making a point to reinvest back into the college. So that will start declining over the next few years. But as long as we have these big projects happening, it's going to continue to look a little bit like that. And then you can see the big growth here. The big change in the budget is the federal funds, the grants coming in that we've talked about. So this is just a comparison year over year of how the budget has changed in terms of the revenue sources and the use of the revenue sources that are in the budget. And then here's a change in terms of the fund. So the big changes are in the general fund, and that's funds that come in, and then we're essentially transferring that. Mostly, there's some operational changes, but most of that is going to support these capital increases that were in the capital budget that we talked about. And then the restricted fund is those things that will be funded and expensed directly to those grant funds, the HERF fund. And then the bigger amount of that, or a large part of that, is also the student aid, the direct student aid. So we get the funds coming in from the federal government, and then we ship it out to the students directly, but we have to show that capacity in our budget document. So that's one of the reasons for the big increase. Here's what the proposed budget looks like overall. Typically, our budget looks more blue in terms of these line items, but because we have such a big increase in capital spending, it is a little bit distorted versus what our historical norm is, with our personnel expenses being in the general fund, somewhere closer to 70% of the general fund. But overall, when you factor in capital, it has become a much smaller component, particularly with all the construction we're doing. So next steps with the budget calendar are, what we're looking to do is get approval tonight so that we can post the state budget forms in the newspaper. And then in June, we'll have the public hearing and special meeting. And what isn't listed on this is the study session that we'll be having on Friday where we will talk a bit more about positions and compensation. There is additional information in this presentation. I'm not going to go through all of those items. The one I'm going to shoot to one though in particular, which is the general fund summary. And what's important about this and why I want to shoot to this is because this one really shows that year over year, when we take away those capital projects, that massive infrastructure investment that we're putting into the college, the budget change year over year is not that abnormal. There are some increased costs for information technology in particular. I'll point out that actually that's one of the things that leads to the institutional support being growing. Institutional support is not just administrators. Administrators actually are located in a number of the different categories. Institutional support are the support services. So those are things like human resources, information technology is one of the bigger ones, the financial services, those kinds of things are the institutional support categories, and some of the other administrative functions of the college. So those are support functions, not administration, just to be clear on that. In addition to that, college police and some of facilities are also in that category. So it's a category that covers a lot of important things at the college. And it is not just about administrators. Anyway, so what the point of this slide is, though, if you look at the change year over year, there isn't that big of a change. And the change is primarily based on the compensation increases and then small amounts of utility increases and then IT license changes that are mostly related to the pandemic and some of the additional things that we're doing from a technology standpoint. So those are the things that I wanted to make sure we hit tonight. Those are the most critical slides and the most critical points that I wanted to make. So I'll stop there and ask if the board has any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. B? Yes, Ms. Ripley.
Yes, so just to be clear, this is a proposed budget. We're not approving it tonight. We're just approving
Correct.
the fact that it is a proposed budget, and we'll have more discussion this Friday for one, and then a public hearing.
We are voting to publish it in the paper, which is the legal requirement, so that we can then vote on it at the next meeting, but it provides the upper level,
Great.
sort of the outer limit.
Great, thank you, because again,
Correct.
I would like to ask some specific boring questions apart from this meeting at, it's 9:13, on some line items, just to be clear.
You can certainly ask questions now, and then if you want, we can go into more detail at the study session. But either one is, because you have to ask them. So either now or later.
No, I'll wait for the study session.
Okay,
I do have a lot of questions, and
okay.
they're boring.
Okay, sounds great. And are there any other questions for Dr. B? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Mr. Gonzalez? I didn't hear you. Okay, aye. Okay, so hearing no one opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Finally, we have a request for future agenda items. Okay, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.